Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Jai Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Satasisi Mother's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Umaginatamirandasya Ginanjana Salakaya Chaksulan Madatam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swaya Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapakandikam Panchakopa Tirubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So somehow or other, I know today they're saying 20,000 devotees will be here by sometime before this evening. And I'm sure you all wanted to hear someone other than me today, wanted to hear Maharaj today. I even asked him this morning, he said, I'm speaking this evening, he said. You would have accepted him speaking this morning and this evening. But anyway, they asked me to speak this morning, of course, in Prabhupada Katha. And you'll see I don't have Srimad Bhagavatam in my hands, but Srila Prabhupada, we know, is person Bhagavat. Yeah. Every word from Srimad Bhagavatam has come from Srila Prabhupada's lotus mouth. I actually got to hear many of those words spoken by Srila Prabhupada. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, as I was traveling around with them almost 2.5 years. At that time, I was a light sleeper, still a light sleeper. So when he would start, after taking rest, 10:30 at night, Prabhupada had a very regulated schedule. I know most of you, if you've been here for some time, you've read or seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur's schedule. Many of you know everything, his daily schedule, repeated. When he ate, what he ate, the time it took, when he chanted japa, when he did his translation work, when he read books, all those things, same. Bali Mardana and I, we go way, way back 55 years or so. So Prabhupada was the same. We see the devotee, pure devotee, very regulated, not whimsical, not a whimsical person, very regulated. But with Prabhupada being regulated, that was a whole other business, because he was constantly, every few days, having to change the time on his watch as he traveled around the world. At one point, 50 years ago, it was 50 years ago, we'll be speaking about that, Prabhupada's 50th anniversary of Prabhupada being in so many places. But 50 years ago, he went from this place, this area here, Mumbai area, Juhu. He left Juhu in January. He went to 15 temples, and he ended up in Mayapur for Gaur Purnima. So in 60 days, he was in 15 temples. All of you IT math experts, you know that's about 4 days in each temple, which means every 4 days, we're all having to change our watches as Prabhupada would sit down. Sometimes flights, 5 hours, 10 hours, 22 hours. From the US, he would come to Delhi, 10-hour time difference. He was 75, he was about my age, 75, 76, 77 years old. And you know when you arrive, anyone that travels, know when you travel, you get to Delhi 1 o'clock in the morning, at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then he would take that drive to Delhi, which now it's a little easier, 2.5 hours. Then it was 3 to 4 hours. And he would get to Delhi, no temple to stay in, just staying this person's house, some life member's house. And then if it was a little early, maybe take a little rest. And then 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd have to make sure he had a datung in the bathroom. You all know datung? Toothbrush, which was an actual twig. In Vrindavan, it was easy. You went to Lohi Bazaar and you would buy a big stack of neem twigs. Australia, not so easy. You'd have to climb a eucalyptus tree to get some. Other places, even more difficult. New York City, how do you get a toothbrush? You had to find some kind of tree, some twig you would get. Also, you would look for eucalyptus, it was very antiseptic. That had to be there. That was my business. Make sure datung is in there. 6 o'clock in the morning, he's on the walk. Even after flying 20 hours. We didn't want to go on the walk. His disciples, his entourage, sometimes he'd have to wake them up to go on the morning walk. But Prabhupada regulated. Every night that translation work was going on, Srimad Bhagavatam. I was thinking, I was told yesterday afternoon that I would speak this morning, start off Festival of Gratitude, the Festival of Gratitude. Of course, we know today's a special day, December 7th, Vyas Puja Day, Radhanath Maharaj. Him and I, we also go back way back to New Vrindavan. You all know what they called the devotees in New Vrindavan? Inmates, Prabhupada called them. You know what an inmate is? It means you're in prison. That's an inmate. In the West, an inmate is a person that's in jail. New Vrindavan was kind of like that, very difficult place to leave. Like your road coming here, just a few kilometers from the highway to here, but it's half the trip is just taking this. That's what New Vrindavan was like. So once you were there, leaving was very difficult. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada had that regulation. Eating, very regulated. Sleeping. After lunch, he took a nap. He's only sleeping 3 hours at night, 2-3 hours at nighttime. Sometimes 8 o'clock, he'd call me into the room and say, tonight you make, every evening menu was there. He decided what he wanted. Lunchtime, always the same. Rice, chapatis, dal, sabjis, Kerala sabjis start. Then whatever vegetables were available somewhere around the world. But evening time, around 8 o'clock, 8:30, he'd call me in the room. Sometimes he'd say, potato eggplant sabji and puris. 9 o'clock at night, he's eating eggplant sabji, eggplant potato sabji, puris, sandesh, and always his drink, hot milk. Every night without fail. Even if he didn't eat, every night was hot milk. And hot milk meant very hot, not warm, hot. Sometimes if I wasn't doing, as we were traveling, and someone would come in and bring him his milk, and Prabhupada would look at it, and he'd say, it's not hot. Even before the devotee put it on the table, he'd say, go make it hot. So then the devotee go back down into the kitchen, make it hot, come back. And again, Prabhupada said, it's not hot enough. Prabhupada said, it's hot, Prabhupada. He said, you're holding the glass. If you're holding the glass, it can't be hot. It should be so hot you can't hold the glass. So then he'd go back down again, come back up. I'm going to be going over the next 2 hours here and there. I can see that already. But I was thinking what to speak about, how to speak about Srila Prabhupada. What can I tell you? And I was thinking about two things. Vani Our whole business is hearing. What did Prabhupada say? His spiritual master was pleased with him. Why?
He likes to hear.
He likes to hear. Our first business, that's why we say hearing and chanting. We don't say chanting and hearing. First you have to hear. And chanting doesn't just mean saying Maha Mantra. Chanting means what you're speaking. That's your chanting. Huh? What you speak. So in order to speak nicely, you have to hear nicely. And Prabhupada, what he said so many times, my Guru Maharaj, he was pleased. He said, even I couldn't understand him in the beginning. If you read Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, not so easy to understand, huh? Even his English, everything amazing. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But Prabhupada heard nicely. We were in New Vrindavan. It's when I left New Vrindavan. Last night I was talking, myself and Yadabar, if you were there at the Jamuna Artik, you saw after the Artik, Maharaj was talking for like 20 minutes. And he was telling us all about how he started out, how he met Prabhupada. We all know he was a yogi. He was born, last life, he was a great yogi, Maharaj. That much I know. And in this life, of course, what did he do? When he went in, he went into the Himalayas. He was very happy there. He likes to go wherever there's a cave. He told me when he was in Italy even, he said they went and they brought him to a cave. Was there, but they let us in. And we went inside. And beautiful house. It was a beautiful place. But he wasn't there in the house. Then we went, found our way to the river. And right by the river, by the Ganges, they had made a cave. And he was in the cave. I was watching him this morning chanting japa. I thought, this is so not what he would do if he had a choice. Huh? Training all of you, thousands and thousands of you. Huh? You know here what he does. What's he do? He goes, walks around by the hills quietly. No one can go there. No one is allowed. Just wants to chant Hare Krishna. But here he's chanting Hare Krishna in front of so many of you. Huh? But still the meditation is there. And then we went another day there, Rishikesh. He was literally sitting in ashes where they had a fire. He was very happy there, just chanting very nicely, watching the Ganga flow, chanting japa. So he was there, what year was it? 1971, huh? Cross Maidan. I was recently with Shruti Prabhu. Any of you ever hear of Shruti? My godbrother. He opened up South Africa for Srila Prabhupada. 18 years old. We'll get back to that story later. But he told me he was there at that Cross Maidan festival. Just a young boy, like so many. Prabhupada said, come to India. They went to India. And there were 10,000, just like here, just like you see here, open thing. It was like that. Like over 10,000 people came just by seeing a big poster in Cross Maidan area saying Hare Krishna Festival. They all came just by word of mouth. 1971, as Prabhupada said, Indians, 90% Krishna conscious. but going in the wrong direction. And that we see over the last 50 years, going in the wrong direction. And that's why you're all here now. Culture, you've gone in the wrong direction so long, you're finally ready to accept Krishna consciousness because you understood there's no enjoyment in this material world. Until you work hard to try to enjoy, then you realize it's not there. Until you get to that point. Prabhupada at one point in 71, 72, one of his disciples came up to him, said, I'm studying Hindi. Prabhupada looked at him. American, why? He said, to preach to the Indians. Prabhupada looked, he said, I've been preaching to them my whole life. I haven't made one devotee. What are you going to do? But now everyone becoming devotee. So at that festival, I was at the one in 1972, which was in December 1972. So 1971, it was, I think, back in March, just 9 months previous, something like that. Anyway, Prabhupada's sitting on the Vyasa-san, and he told his disciple, go get that American sadhu who's at the back, way in the back. Devotee couldn't even see him, who he's talking about. Who's this person? And finally, Prabhupada said, go in the back, and you bring him up to the front. Radhanath Maharaj was telling us this story last night. So he brought him to the front. It was Radhanath Maharaj, his long hair. Yadabar said, did you have a beard? He said, well, I didn't shave for a few years, but I really didn't have a beard. He said, it just didn't grow. So he came up front. Of course, heard from Srila Prabhupada. And then when he was leaving and he went down, offered his obeisances, what was he going to do? Touch Prabhupada's feet. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. No one touches Prabhupada's feet. Just like you're trained. If he's walking around, do you go up to him? No, no one goes up to him. I don't even go up to him anymore. Tamal Krishna, no one touches Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada looked at him, he said, you can touch my feet. I don't know he said that to anyone else. And then he said, we're having class every morning and evening. He said, you come here to the classes. So he did that. And then, of course, he went back, back to the Himalayas, he said. And then again, 1972, and Prabhupada was there for Kartik. He was there, but before that, of course, Maharaj had to leave India. He didn't want to leave India, but on a tourist visa as a US citizen, could only stay so long. So he had to leave for 6 months. So he left India, he made his way back. Said, I think he went to Denmark. Then he went to England. He went to the temple. He went to the temple in Denmark, went to the temple in England. And there he met Radhanath Swami. And he's headed back to America where he has to go to get his visa. And Radhanath wrote down on a piece of paper a name of one devotee. He said, I think you should go look for him. He said, he's like you. That person, who was that person? He wrote down. Vishnu Jan Swami. That was Radhanath Swami's cousin. There were cousins, Radhanath Swami, Vishnu Jan Swami. So we wound up in New York. Who was there in New York? Temple president was there. And then it was 1972, July. And Prabhupada was in New York. He said he didn't get any association then. But the devotee was saying, trying to think of who it was, Tamal Krishna or others, Prabhupada's going to New Vrindavan for a big festival. This would be Janmashtami festival, 1972, Janmashtami Vyas Puja festival. And he said, we need all the help we can get. Kirtanananda Swami, who was running New Vrindavan, very first farm in ISKCON, New Vrindavan. 1968 they bought it. Srila Prabhupada stayed there 1969 in the summer. He stayed at this Vrindavan farm, which later was where Radhanath Maharaj would stay, do his service there. Prabhupada stayed there in 1969. We were just there a few months ago. It was a farmhouse, no electricity, no running water, no kitchen, dirt floor on the ground. And then there was a little, you went up this tiny little stairs, and that's where they had the deities, little Radha Vrindavan Chandra deities. Prabhupada stayed there for a month. No bathroom, no kitchen, no running water, no electricity. He was very happy there, chanting and speaking to the devotees, chanting to the devotees for a month. He didn't need grand, beautiful place. Very happy seeing this new Vrindavan. So in 72, July, Kirtananda was saying, we need people to come. We need devotees to come to New Vrindavan. There's going to be a few hundred devotees there. Prabhupada's going to do his Bhagavad Katha, Bhagavatam, for 7 days. We need people to help. Maharaj heard, so he went up to Kirtanananda Swami, Radhanath went up to Kirtanananda Swami and said, I could come there. He didn't know what to do when he got back to the States. Where was he going to go? And Kirtanananda looked at him. He said, what can you do? He said, do you know how to cook? He said, no. Do you know construction work? No. He said, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'll do whatever you ask. He said, well, how are you going to get there? He said, well, is there some vehicle or something? So there was a little, we call school bus. This was one of the mini school buses. But it only had 2 seats in it. And the rest was all, put the flour, they bought everything. New Vrindavan, you couldn't get supplies. So they would go to the big stores in the city. So they loaded up with the flour and the rice, all these things. And Kirtananda said, well, you go ask them, the drivers, there were 2 of them. So he asked them and they said, well, there's no room. They said, what did Kirtananda Maharaj say? He said, well, he told me to ask you. Maharaj said, he said, but there's no room in the van. He said, look, I'll just sit in the back on the floor. He said, I won't say a word. I'll just sit there. This was Radhanath Maharaj at the time. I'll just sit there in the back. So they let him go to New Vrindavan. So at that time, I was cooking in the kitchen. I was the head cook. I was the only cook. That meant head cook. Nobody else. But for the festival, we needed helpers. One of those helpers I had was Radhanath Swami. He wasn't initiated yet. He was at that farm over a year. He told us he was recommended for initiation by letter 3 times, but he never felt qualified, he said. He said, if I'm going to get initiated, I have to be ready to surrender. He said, I already accepted Srila Prabhupada as my spiritual master. He said, I already accepted him. He said, but become initiated was very serious business. He understood. Very serious. So he said 3 letters had come over the course of a year. His name was on there, but he kept refusing. Finally, the last letter, he said when it came, he said all the other letters, they were all initiated already. So he was the last one of those group to get initiated. I asked him when he arrived, I didn't remember in New Vrindavan. He didn't shave his head either. He figured that was also a big act of surrender. You do that, you're surrendered. So there in the kitchen, I'm cooking, and I have helpers. We're cooking for hundreds of devotees, khichdi and breadsticks. At that time, we were making breadsticks. That was always the way in the West. Do things fast, easy. Rolling chapatis takes time. Making breadsticks, throw it in the ghee, and you have nice breadsticks. They were very good. So I said, were you helping in that, cutting vegetables? He said, no. He said, I was washing pots. He said, and they were really black pots, the bottoms, because we didn't have gas stoves, neither in New Vrindavan. We cooked on wood, just had wood burning. That's how we cooked for everyone. No running water in the kitchen. So it wasn't easy, but it was very blissful. He said, so that was my job, was washing the pots. So that was 1972. And at the end, when Prabhupada left, I went with him. The night before, Kirtanananda Swami came into the kitchen. I was cooking milk sweets for the next morning, Mongol sweets for the deities. Back then, always same, sweet rice, kheer, sandesh, burfi, like that, all first-class milk sweets. And Kirtananda came in the room and said, do you want to be Prabhupada's servant? What would any of you say? I said, yes. Farm life wasn't very easy anyway. I was a city boy. I went to New Vrindavan the year earlier. I was 19 years old. I had never seen a cow. Only pictures. I know what they look like. I did see photographs of cows, but I never actually saw a cow. After I got there, within a month, I was milking 6 cows a day. I always say I started at the top, and I worked my way down ever since. I milked a cow a few months ago. It was a lot harder than it used to be. But I became cowherd boy. As soon as you go to New Vrindavan, cows, most wonderful animals. Prabhupada at the manor once, you see the pictures, Bhaktivedanta Manor, if you haven't been there, nice leaded glass windows, triangular shape, and big lawn in front, garden, big lawn in the front, and a big pond was there. And Prabhupada would chant sometimes, just look out the window. He's looking out the window, and then he looks at me. So he said, what is the most beautiful animal? I'm thinking, and I thought, a cow. Must be a cow, right? Krishna's favorite animal. Prabhupada looked at me, he said, no, a horse. He said, very beautiful. He said, muscular, the most beautiful animal. I think if I would have said a horse, he would have said something else. You could never be right when Prabhupada asked you a question. It was automatically you were wrong. It was an Air India flight with Prabhupada, 1972. At that time, they even had pictures, Radha Krishna and on the walls, things like that, and people are boarding the plane. And Prabhupada's, where did he sit in the plane? The window. Always sat at the window seat. And then my job, my service was sitting next to him. The only thing they told me when I became Prabhupada's servant, there was no instruction manual, how to be a proper personal servant. And now we have manuals for everything. You want to be a guru, they have guru courses, disciple courses. Preacher, they have Bhakti Shastra, Bhakti Bible. You have to go through all these courses in order to do anything. All we had was Srimad Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad Gita class. Everything else, you just had to learn by people telling you you're a fool. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. When I moved into the temple, I went into the bathroom. I didn't know what to do after passing, and no one told me how to clean yourself even. You figured things out in the course of time. Anyway, where was I? Oh, on the airplane, thank you. It's 75, you know. So I'm sitting next to Prabhupada and the music's playing. They still play the music. Pretty much the same in Air India nowadays. They brought it back. They've come back to trying to be Indian culture. Huh? And the music, it's instrumental. Tabla and sitar. Very beautiful. And we're sitting there and Prabhupada looks at me. He said, "Do you like that?" I didn't know what to say. There's no chanting going on. How you can like it if there's no chanting? And I just looked at him and he said, "It's very nice." I said, "Yes, Prabhupada, very nice." I told that story once. Harikesh was there. We were both telling stories, Prabhupada Katha. He said, "That happened to me." Same thing, he said. Sitting next to Prabhupada. The same music's playing. He's played the same music for years in the airplane. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, "Do you like this music?" He said, I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "It's sense gratification music." You can't be right. Nanda Kumar told me once, he was in the room, and Prabhupada had his bookshelf. Only books on his bookshelf were his books. And every month it increased. When I first joined him, there was like 6 books on the shelf. First Canto, Nectar of Devotion, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Supanishad. That was it. Every month, Prabhupada translated another book. And when he was done, you had 1 month for that book to be printed. And that wasn't so easy back in those days. Took a lot of, everything was done by hand. Diacritics had to be placed on a board by hand, everything. But if it wasn't there within a month, oof, you would know. So he has his books. And he said, "Nanda Kumar, get that blue book." Nanda Kumar is looking back and forth, maybe 10 books there. There's no blue book there. Prabhupada says, "Get that book, the blue book." Nanda Kumar said, "This one, Prabhupada, this green one?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, that one, it's blue." Always right. Always right. I learned, even before I was his servant, I learned, if he asks a question, be quiet. Let somebody else make the mistakes. I learned that right away. I don't need to do that. It was in his garden. I traveled with my godbrother, Kuladri Prabhu. He ran New Vrindavan many, many years. Him and I, we were very close. And in New Vrindavan, we were like Prabhupada or Kirtananda's right and left hand men. Somehow, Kirtananda picked me, which was smart, because Kuladri was much better at management than I would have ever been. Anyway, we drove across country 5,000 kilometers from New Vrindavan to Los Angeles to get Brahmin initiation. Took 5 days, go across, in a van with no windows, just the front window, no windows in the van. So we got there, and that's when I first got to see Srila Prabhupada. First initiation, I saw them in the temple room giving class and for initiation, but that was it. This was different. We went there with Kirtanananda Swami, one of the very first disciples, 1966, very first sannyasi. So we went across country in the van. We get to Los Angeles, and because I'm with him, the Swami, I got to be right up front at the class in New Dwarka, Los Angeles. I got to go on the morning walk every morning. Morning walk was just sannyasis, GBCs, temple presidents, big book distributors, which was just beginning. I was just a boy baling hay in New Vrindavan, but I was right there because I knew Kirtanananda Swami. So every afternoon we would go into the garden. Just 5 or 6 of us. Just brahmacharis, Kirtanananda was there. Every day as the sun's beginning to go down. Los Angeles is very beautiful. It's like springtime most of the year. Just like your weather here now, it's like that most of the year. Very nice. Prabhupada liked it very much. And his garden, which is small, about the size of the garden Chowpatty, about that size, with privacy wall going around. And we go in, and the last group, they left. They got their initiation and they left. So when I walked in, devotee handed me the Krishna book. So when Prabhupada asks, you read. I said, okay. So we're sitting down, and we would just watch Prabhupada. We just watch every movement he made, you know, moving his mouth. Sometimes you poke his ear, his nose, just watch him. Sometimes he'd say something, sometimes chant japa. So that one day he looks at us, goes, Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He said, we're proud to be servants of Krishna. Put his chest out. He always sat very straight. He put his chest. He said, that's our pride. We're servants of Krishna. He said, everyone is serving their family, serving their wife, the husband, serving their boss, serving their dog. In the 70s, imagine Prabhupada going, watching people walking their dog, picking up their poo. He said, but we're servants of Krishna. That's our pride. Then another, he looked out. He said, so what color is Krishna? That was the first question I heard him ask. I'm thinking, what do you mean, what color is Krishna? Everybody knows what color Krishna is. But I figured, if he's asking that, it's a trick. It's a trick question. He's not straightforward, Srila Prabhupada. That's a whole other story. So I'm sitting there, I'm not going to say anything. And this one Brahmin, Prabhupada, he said, he's black like the monsoon rain cloud. He quoted Krishna book. He quoted Shastra. Blackish like the monsoon rain cloud. Prabhupada went. He said he's blue like the sky. And then he said, that's why the sky is blue. It's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. Huh? Scientists still give you so many reasons why the sky is blue. But Prabhupada said it's blue because it's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. That's why. Brahmajyoti, color, reflecting Lord Chaitanya's bodily effulgence, he said. So you would learn things from Srila Prabhupada. But imagine hearing that. He quoted Shastra and he was still wrong. Prabhupada could defeat any argument you gave. We were on a morning walk. Morning walks were the most fun activities because Prabhupada would interchange with his disciples. So this morning walk was in Mexico City, in a botanical garden. Botanical garden means they have plants, trees all over the world. Very beautiful. And Prabhupada's walking, and he stopped. He pointed with his cane. He had his cane, pointed at a tree. It was dead. Prabhupada said, "Why did the tree die?" I don't say anything, because I don't know. Whatever I say, I'm wrong. GBC sannyasi. Prabhupada died because it was old. Prabhupada shook his head. Now, you want to say something. You're on the morning walk. You want Prabhupada to recognize you. You want him to see you. You want to talk with him. So the next devotees, well, not dead, Prabhupada became diseased. No, Prabhupada shook his head, no. I'd been with him 2 years now. And I'm standing there with the microphone and I'm thinking, what does he want to hear? Birth, old age, disease, and death. They covered everything. They covered the bases. Disease, and thinking, what does he want to hear? I'm not thinking on my own, why is it dead? I'm thinking, why does he see it as being dead? Then finally I said something. What did I say? Spirit soul is left. Prabhupada, look. This is why you have to hear from the pure devotee. He opens, as we say every day, we say that, opens your eyes. In the darkness of it, he opens your eyes, what's actually going on. This whole world, everything illusion. Every day, Prabhupada would go out and he would show you all the illusion that's going on in the world. One of the very first morning walks was in another botanical garden in Berkeley. Prabhupada stayed there for a few days, Berkeley, California. And he's on the walk. His cane was a pointer. He always used his cane as a pointer. And as he's walking, and you could see in the background the hills, San Francisco, you could see all the skyscrapers. Prabhupada called them skyscrapers. You know what scrap is? Trash. Yeah, trash. Prabhupada called skyscrapers, all junk. Junk, everything junk. So and it looks very pretty from a distance, all these big, big buildings, skyscrapers going up into the clouds. You know, the ocean was there, the bay, San Francisco Bay, and clouds and the blue sky, and you see the skyline. The skyline, very famous skylines. And then Prabhupada's walking and he stopped at this one spot. And there were these iron gates, big, high, 3-meter high iron gates, very decorated very nicely. And where the gates opened, there was this, it said, Children's Fantasy Land. So it was like a little playground for children. And Prabhupada stopped and he got his cane, he said, Children's Fantasy Land. Then he pointed to the skyscrapers. He said, Adult Fantasy Land. We're thinking very nice, everything's so nice. Prabhupada saw everything illusion, temporary. You had to be very careful when you were with Srila Prabhupada. You had to be careful what you said, what you didn't say, how you sat. I was on the plane with him once, sitting next to him. And what do? You're sitting next to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And my legs start going like this. Prabhupada, stop that. He said, that's very bad. I saw Prabhupada do it a couple times, but it was very special circumstances. Maybe we'll tell you about that a little bit. But he said, that's very bad. Huh? So 73, April 1973, Prabhupada had been in India. I remember to this day, the secretary came in, showed him this picture, San Moritz. You ever hear of San Moritz? San Moritz in those days was the most famous ski resort in the world for the very, very wealthy. In the Alps, beautiful mountains in the Alps. But he showed him a postcard, San Moritz, in April. And it was all wildflowers, yellow, all different color flowers, and green hills and mountains, and no snow. And he said, we can go there for some days. It's very beautiful. So Prabhupada said, okay. So we get to Zurich, Switzerland, beginning of April. You were there, Bali was there, Bali Mardam Prabhu was there. He'll tell you more about that later. Ask him about San Moritz, Zurich. So we get to Zurich. It's snowing and it's cold, freezing cold. And we took the train to San Moritz. And on the train, there's 3 of us. You weren't on that. You were on the train as well. I'm sorry. Yes. And Prabhupada's at the window. I'm sitting right next to Prabhupada. Next to me was one devotee, little Pakistani devotee. Yeah, he was in England. I'll think of his name eventually. But tiny little guy, very sweet, very nice. Jai Hari, that was his name, Jai Hari. And we're traveling on this train, which was considered a scenic route. People would take this train just to see the mountains as it weaved back and forth through all the different hills, and you see the snow or whatever, depending on the time of year. And Jai Hari or I were looking and looking, and we never saw anything like it before. It was beautiful. It was all snow, and it's a blizzard going on. And Prabhupada saw the 2 of us. We forgot all about that we're sitting next to pure devotee of Krishna. We forgot all about it. We're looking and like, wow, look at it. And Prabhupada looked at me. He said, what do they call this place? I said, oh, I was very happy. It was a question I could answer. I still got it wrong. Even I gave him the right answer. I said, oh, Prabhupada, they call San Moritz, Saint Moritz. He said, they may call it San Moritz, I call it Saint Hellish. He said, not a living thing anywhere, he said. He said, what a place. How can anyone like this place? He said, so cold, nothing alive. He said, just snow everywhere, nothing living. So even I said it right. He changed it. He let me know I was wrong. So then we just shifted, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That was the only thing you could do with Prabhupada, with chant Hare Krishna. And then we get to San Moritz. Every morning, what did Prabhupada do? First thing in the morning, sun's coming up, morning walk. Every morning. Again, regulated. And morning walk didn't mean like a nice little stroll.
So is it okay for you?
Where?
Towards the temple.
Okay. They're going to move me because of the sun. Where are we going?
So because of the sunlight, it's not good for Prabhuji's health. So we are moving Prabhuji towards the temple side. You all just turn straight. That's it. Prabhuji will sit there.
glass door. So we moved back the curtain and it's snowing out. And Prabhupada said, well, let's see. And I opened the door, I slid the door open. This big gust of wind, freezing wind comes in and all the snow's coming in. And Prabhupada said, oh, he said, we can't walk in this. He said, that's okay, we'll walk in the hallway. So just like where I'm staying here at the senior facility, nice long hallway. Go back and forth. And Switzerland, this is Switzerland. Switzerland had the first digital watch. Switzerland is known. They were very before their time. So in this hallway, the elevator would open up. When the elevator opened, all the lights would go on in the hallway. But then they would only stay on for a certain amount of time, then they would automatically. And Jumna's walking, and every time we got to a button, I'd push the button and make sure the lights didn't go out because it'd be totally black. Make sure the lights didn't go out. And we're walking back and forth, back and forth. Prabhupada walked for an hour, every day, at least an hour. So after about 15, 20 minutes, Prajumna, he gets, Prabhupada, he said, I have to do translating work. He said, I have to do some work. He said, so he left. So now it's just Prabhupada and myself, and we're walking back and forth in the hallway, up and down, up and down. And I'm pushing the buttons. Every time I see a button, I push it on the wall. And Prabhupada looks at me. He said, this cold weather is giving me appetite. He said, you have suji. It's the only thing they had. No whole wheat flour, no maida, nothing. But they did have suji. Prabhupada said, you can make me halava. He said, this weather is giving me appetite. I said, yes, Prabhupada. I was happy to make halava. He never had halava for breakfast, just fruits, little sandesh or something. So I go inside, and I'm getting everything ready, and I'm thinking, those lights are going to go out. I tell Prajumna, I said, Prabhupada's walking in the hallway by himself. I said, these lights, they go off all the time. We got to do something. So we both go to the door. We open the door and we're looking, and Prabhupada's walking away down the hallway, and every time he saw a button, he had his cane and he'd push the button as he went along. He'd push this button, he'd push this button. We just started laughing watching Prabhupada. I went back and cooked his halava for him. Halava. Showed me how to make chapatis with the suji. When I first became his servant, we spent 3 days in Dallas, Texas. There I had to learn how to give him massage and how to use the cooker. And those 3 days, every day he showed me how to use the cooker, and of course we'd make a chapati dough. And there was no rolling pin. And I said, Prabhupada, I have to get a rolling pin. Prabhupada said, that's okay. He said, I'll show you how to make chapatis without a rolling pin. I'm thinking he's going to do something really mystical. He's just going to make the chapati. He said, and they're better that way. I said, oh. So he said, you make your ball, then made another ball, put a little flour on them. You put the one ball on top of the other, you start pressing, then keep flip-flopping in little flour, keep pressing. Then you make 2 chapatis at a time. They become perfect. And they're better because rolling pin doesn't make anything very nice. I learned that with pizza as well. You don't use a rolling pin to make pizza crust. You use your hands. So it's the same thing, 2 at a time. We're doing. Yeah. Okay. Where was I going to go? I was going to say. So Prabhupada and 50 years ago, 1975, I was with Prabhupada when he went to Australia, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney. I was with him, where else did he go? Atlanta. That was the big time in Atlanta. So now, 50 years later, 2023, there were no 50th anniversary festivals. This year, still 2025, they realized the big deal, 50th anniversary festival. The first one was Krishna Balaram Mandir, 50th anniversary festival, Krishna Balaram Mandir. I think 90 or so Prabhupada disciples came. We realize it's probably the last time so many of Prabhupada's disciples will be in Vrindavan at the same time. It was a wonderful festival put on for all the devotees. Everyone, all Prabhupada's disciples, they all had room to stay. They all had very nice prasadam, custom-made prasadam 3 times a day. Wonderful festival. And the deities, Krishna Balaram, replicated. Wife made the outfit, tried to make the same outfit that was there when Prabhupada did the very first artik, when the first doors were open for Krishna Balaram. The flower decorations were the same, everything was the same. And when they opened those doors, all the devotees just went in ecstasy seeing the deities, because we all saw the photos so many times, the photos and videos of Srila Prabhupada doing the first artik. And we saw the deities, Krishna Balaram, so those doors open. So that was the first festival. Then a few weeks later, went to Australia. Prabhupada went to Australia 50 years ago during May. So they did exact same path Prabhupada went. First he went to Perth. He went to Perth, there was no temple there. They rented him a cottage, little cottage near the beach. And stayed there for 10 days. He went there to open the Melbourne temple, the new Melbourne temple, and install Gaur-Nitai deities. Everywhere around the world, Prabhupada's installing deities. So he was going to go there to install the deities. But they weren't ready, so they said, Prabhupada, go in Perth, you can rest. Not a good thing to say to Prabhupada, to rest. Devotees don't rest. There's no retirement for a devotee. So Prabhupada went there. There's just Srila Prabhupada, myself, his secretary, Paramahamsa Swami was his name, was his secretary. And then 3 devotees, Australian devotees. Well, one, Amoga Leela, he was there. And then these 2 very new brahmacharis. In Australia, Prabhupada would initiate you. His first initiation in Australia was 1971. So they had 5 or 6 devotees that had been living in the temple for some months. Prabhupada initiated them. And then he looked. There were devotees there for 2-3 days. Prabhupada said, we'll initiate you. This was Prabhupada. He wanted to establish this society, every continent around the world. And he traveled every continent around the world, except one. What continent? Antarctica. Oh, very good, Antarctica. And you know what? 10 years ago, devotee went there and put Srila Prabhupada's books in every country's, whatever they would call it, what's it called? Anyway, every representative of every country was there. They put a set of Srimad Bhagavatam in every one of those places. So in 2015, which was 50 years from when Srila Prabhupada arrived in America, for 50th anniversary, they installed Srila Prabhupada's books, the consulate, the consulates of every country there in Antarctica. So anyway, in Perth, we get there the first day. We all take rest at night. No temple, no deities, not even a picture of the Panchatattva, nothing. So, hey, that's nice. We just slept in, get ready for the morning walk. So we go on the morning walk, we come back, and Prabhupada rings his bell. That bell traveled all around the world as well, that bell. And I always had to be within earshot of hearing the bell. He didn't have a cell phone, he texted me or anything. No, just a little handbell. So I could never be more than like 10 meters away from that bell. So he rang the bell. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. He said, call the devotees. So Moga, he was senior devotee. He helped open up temples in Asia, Southeast Asia places. So he calls us all in, and Prabhupada looked at Moga. He said, so what's the program? And Moga said, well, we have this person coming, tomorrow evening. This person's coming, this person's coming. Prabhupada said, no, what's the program? The morning program there in person. Servant of God like that. So he's telling it to the teacher. And of course, I don't know, it might have been teaching math, science, something like that. Nothing to do with God realization. So Prabhupada's saying, this is what you have to do. He said, but the whole society, he said, everyone, nonsense rascals, everyone third class men, he says. He's looking, and the young man's just sitting there listening to Prabhupada. He said, not even third class, fourth class men. Everyone in society, because they're sitting on the side thinking, this poor guy, We didn't understand Prabhupada much. And then Prabhupada looks at him. He said, not even fourth class, fifth class men. He said, and you're a fifth class man. And we're, poor Mahamsa and I, poor guy, But the man, Prabhupada understood who he was talking to. And he said, well, how do I become first class? Prabhupada said, you have to hear from the pure devotee. And the man said, okay. He said, well, who's the pure devotee? Prabhupada looked and he pointed to Paramahamsa and me. He said, they're pure devotees. And then we kind of poked. We were very happy. Prabhupada wouldn't say, you have to hear from me, I'm pure devotee. He said, no, they're the pure devotees. You have to hear from them. So we were very happy Prabhupada did that. So then he's on a morning walk with these new devotees. Amoga Leela is there. And Prabhupada's translating the 5th canto at this time. And that was a big deal. The universe, the moon, the sun, the placement where everything is. So that was a lot of very controversial time. Because Prabhupada said we didn't go to the moon. Devotees left the society Because Prabhupada said we didn't go to the moon, because they saw it on the television. Prabhupada said just like the King Kong movie. That was in the 30s. Prabhupada was talking about a movie in the 1930s. We call a silent movie. Prabhupada said just like King Kong's on the Empire State Building. He said all fake. He said same thing. More than 50% of people in the West believe it was all faked. The whole moon landing was fake. Anyway, Prabhupada's on the morning walk. We were walking. And he said, so, devotee, he's simple or crooked? I'm next to him. I'm thinking, I'm not touching that question. You know? I knew better than to answer any question and have him say no. So we're walking. Finally, Amoga says, he's simple, Prabhupada. We know that devotee is simple. Prabhupada said he's crooked. He said, just like me. He said, I've tricked all of you. He said, huh? What's the trick? Just chant Hare Krishna. You don't have to change anything. Just add Krishna. Huh? How many of you have not changed anything since chanting Hare Krishna? Everything you have to change. Huh? To this day, people will say to me, well, there's no hard and fast rules. That's true. But then get initiated. Huh? Ask your Guru Maharaj if there's any rules and regulations you have to follow. All you know is rules and regulations. Wash your hands. How many times did I hear Prabhupada? Wash your hands. I was a servant for like 2 weeks. And we wound up in the Manila, Philippines. Manila, Philippines. People were not pretty degraded. I'll say they were pretty degraded. So anyway, Prabhupada, there's no temple, no life members, no anything. He stayed in this hotel. Nasty hotel. So it's the evening time, and Prabhupada's there, myself, and he brought these two sannyasis he had just made, Siddhaswarup, Ananda Goswami, and the, oh geez, I always forget the other one's name. No. He looked like a Filipino himself, or he looked like Mexican kind of. I'll think of his name too soon. But he had tattoos on his arm. No one had tattoos 1972 unless you were kind of questionable character, you know, like a thug. But he had tattoos all over the place. But now he's sannyasi, Prabhupada's sannyasi. So Prabhupada rings the bell there in the hotel room. And I go in, he said, I want my milk, hot milk. I don't have milk, I don't have a kitchen, I don't have a stove, I don't have anything. But he wanted hot milk. So I go down the elevator and down the kitchen's in the basement. You know, all these places, kitchen, nasty, dark kitchen. And everyone's speaking, of course, Filipino, I guess, Filipino. So I go in the kitchen, I have some milk and got Prabhupada's cup, and I said, I need to make hot milk. And they're all blah, 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 blabbering at me, looking at me, dhoti kurta, shaved head, you know, you're crazy, you know, looking at me like you're out of your mind. And I'm saying, I come into the kitchen and make, no, you're not allowed in the kitchen, you know, they're pushing me away and all. So after a few minutes, I go back up. And I had failed. And I go back up, I said, Prabhupada, I said, I can't go into the kitchen. So this Swami, he grabs the milk, the cup. He said, I'll get your milk, Prabhupada. I tell you, he was like a criminal, this guy. Hare Krishna. And he goes down, 5 minutes later, comes up, glass of hot milk for Prabhupada. Prabhupada smiled at him. He said to Prabhupada, sometimes he said you have to convince them, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, very nice. And then he looked at me. He said, Shrutakirti's not serious. Oh. This is Guru. He tells you to do something, you don't come back until you've done it. There's Shruti there. He looks like a average old man devotee there, but 18 years old, went to South Africa. Do you know what was going on at that time in South Africa? You all know what apartheid is? Yeah? Separation. Whites, coloreds, Indians, and the blacks. No one allowed to mix. I guess you're going to be speaking else. You can tell all that stuff. But I'll tell a little bit anyway. Devotees couldn't even go to the airport to offer obeisances to Srila Prabhupada because he was an Indian. It was illegal. You could get arrested. Prabhupada went there. His passport, on his passport there was one page said, visas for all countries except South Africa. He got his visa for South Africa. We had 50th anniversary. Prabhu was there. I was there. Every night, Prabhupada spoke at a different facility. He didn't speak about apartheid. He didn't speak on the bodily level. He told everyone. So many Indians would come. Your business is to preach this call of Lord Chaitanya. This is our business. This was Prabhupada's business. He didn't go to easy places to preach. He went to the most difficult places. And he sent his young devotees ahead of him to lay the groundwork. And then he went there, 1975. Some of those places we went to at night, there were 3-4 devotees who were there when Prabhupada spoke. They were little children. Imagine, they heard from Srila Prabhupada, 5, 10 years old, and now they were still there as devotees. But Prabhupada went into the most difficult areas. He went to Russia. When I joined, 1971, April, May, Prabhupada went to Russia. Just getting permission to go in was difficult. He went there with Shyama Sundar and Aravinda. He stayed there for a week. Talked to Professor Katofsky. He didn't understand anything. He couldn't understand. He was just philosopher, logician. But then they brought that one person off of the street, came back, and Prabhupada spoke to him 3 days, and he initiated him. One person. See, the spiritual master he can give you everything if he wants. He gave him he didn't just initiate it, he empowered him. Ananta Shanti, And he preached and preached. Then he got arrested, gave him drugs, did all kinds of things trying to break him. So much difficulty. Now you can't go to any city in the world where you won't find Russian devotees. They're everywhere. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, all by Prabhupada empowering one devotee who heard, listened, and repeated. Prabhupada said in New Vrindavan, 1972, the Janmashtami day, the lecture in the temple room, Prabhupada said, none of my god brothers, he said, have any potency. He said they're happy just ringing the bells, doing arti, ringing bells, collecting some dakshin, that's all. He said they have no potency. He said, I took my spiritual master's words and I followed. He said, if I'd done anything, magic, he would say, that's it. I didn't change anything, I didn't dilute anything, didn't add anything. Prabhupada wasn't the only person. Bhaktisanta Saraswati Thakur said, preach in the West, preach in the English language. He said it in general. But he also said specifically to Srila Prabhupada. And in his very last letter, Prabhupada said he repeated that message. And that became Prabhupada's life and soul. We were in New York for a Rath Yatra this year. Hamsarupa brought us, not Prabhupada's room, but it's Prabhupada's room. Lots of paraphernalia in there, Prabhupada memorabilia. One of the things in that room was Prabhupada's plastic slippers when he came to America, wearing those plastic slippers. They gold-plated them, but even a lot of that had come off after so many years. But Hamsarupa showed us those slippers that Prabhupada wore. I don't know how many months he wore those slippers, summer, winter time. But even, it was plastic, hard plastic. So the bottom was cracked. And in the slipper, Prabhupada just put a piece of cardboard. This is what Prabhupada did. This is why we're here. Because he took all risks, personal risks, physical risks, all kinds of risks to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya that his spiritual master gave him. This is Krishna consciousness. Huh? I started out saying, Vani and Vapu. Vapu is there, but Vapu, Vani is there. When he was here, all he did was give us instructions. I was there. I sat through so many classes, literally, almost 1,000 classes, sitting right there. I tried to look attentive, even if my mind was all over the place. I was just looking very carefully. I knew cameras were there. But you have to hear, and you have to take it in, and you have to follow. Prabhupada said that in the letter. Devotee asked him, is the spiritual master there in his photograph? Prabhupada said, yes. Did you ever see that? You can walk around in temples, you'll see lying on the ground pictures of Krishna, pictures of Prabhupada, just a photograph. So what kind of consciousness is this? In Mayapur, Prabhupada gave one lecture in Mayapur saying, if you go into the bathroom and it's dirty and you don't do anything, you're also in the mode of ignorance. If you accept it, dirty place, you're also in mode of ignorance. In Vrindavan, 76, Prabhupada was walking around in the courtyard of the temple, and he's walking around, and he stopped. He said, no one sees. Whenever he would say that, we would think he's seeing something mystical, because he did. He would see Narada Muni, he would see Rupa Goswami at kirtans. Right? Very place, they had vyasasans, they had seats for Narada Muni, for Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada said they're coming. He said Narada Muni would come to kirtans and laugh, watching us dancing around, these little neophyte devotees, singing and dancing, Prabhupada said. He was in Los Angeles, 1973, world headquarters at that time. Devotees would come from all over America to take training from the head pujari. The head pujari's name was Shalavati Devi. It was a woman. She was head pujari in New Dwarka. Rukmini Dwarkadish, Jagannath, Subhadra, Baladev, Gaurnatai. She was head pujari. And they would come there and take training. One day, Prabhupada walked into the kitchen, first-class kitchen, everything, even 1973, stainless steel, everything there. And Prabhupada went in, all the tables, stainless steel, you know, all the nice containers with the spices, everything, very, very nice. He went right up to the sink, big commercial sinks, the, you know, you could sprayers to clean the pots, everything. He came right up to the sinks. With him is the GBC and the temple president and myself. and he looked in the sink. All these pots hadn't been washed from Raj Bhog. All the pots were still in the sink. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Prabhupada always knew. He didn't just do things, I think I'll take a walk into the... If he went there, he already knew. How did he know? Krishna would tell him. Krishna would talk to him. He would talk to Krishna. Rukmini Dwarkadish is a whole story about Dwarkadish telling Prabhupada to come to India. Prabhupada said, that's not my service. He said, you go to India, make me nice temple. Prabhupada had an argument with him. He said, you go to India. Prabhupada wanted to stay. His headquarters were there, Los Angeles. Beautiful place, beautiful temple. He said, you go to India, establish a temple. And Prabhupada listened. Anyway, that day, 2 in the afternoon, Prabhupada's looking in the sink. He said, why aren't these pots clean? Temple president, Jayatirtha Prabhu. Wonderful, sweet devotee, Jayatirtha. Such a nice devotee. Very sincere. He said, well, the devotees coming with their 3, 4 o'clock to clean. Prabhupada said they should be clean now. Jayatirtha said, well, there's... Said see, I never... Don't say anything. I'm just standing there. I'm already shaking. Because I've been in that position with Prabhupada. He looked at Jayatirtha. No one's here. He said, you're here. You clean them. Temple president. Prabhupada didn't see designations. He didn't care what color your cloth was, what color your face was. You're all just his servants. He said, you clean them. Why someone else has to clean them? He was crying. Jayatirtha was crying. No one liked to be chastised by Srila Prabhupada, but we all handled it in different ways according to our nature. Jayatirtha burst out in tears. But the message was there. In Vrindavan, he's walking around. He said, doesn't anyone see? Devotees are looking. We don't know what we're supposed to see. He said, the fan's on. No one's in the room. Why is the fan on? Why do I have to come 10,000 miles to tell you to turn off a fan? Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna consciousness. You don't leave something for someone else to do. You see something needs done, you do it. You see a faucet dripping, you go and shut it off. These things, these ring in my head. We were in Talasari ISKCON the other day. They have these nice 4 bamboo cabins. It's like, came out, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, sun's been up for hours, and I see all the porch lights on in the different cabins. I had to turn them off. I couldn't ignore them. Prabhupada's watching. He's watching us, what we're doing. Are you serious? Like he said, Shrutakirti, not serious. 55 years, I'm still trying to figure out how to be serious in Krishna consciousness. You have to become, if you're not serious, it means you don't understand Krishna's in everything. Yeah. Electricity, that's also Krishna. Water's Krishna. Krishna's everything. Devotee sees Krishna everywhere. He doesn't waste Krishna's energy. In New York, at the Prabhupada's room there, I told you I saw his slippers with cardboard in them to walk. He didn't have anything. He didn't even have money to buy another pair of shoes. He just slipped cardboard in there. It wasn't easy. Becoming Krishna consciousness is not easy. It's not easy, but the rewards are there if one does everything he should do. And then he showed me an item I used to talk about all the time, but I hadn't seen it for 50 years. Prabhupada had this silver contraption. It was very thin. It was about this long, very narrow, and it had a little thing you slide this way and that way. If you slid this way, it was a toothpick, silver toothpick. If you slid it the other way, it was a little ear pick. Clean your ears with it. When I saw it, I became so excited to see that. Prabhupada used to use that toothpick after he had prasadam to get every piece of prasadam and swallow it. We say that, huh? In the morning prayers, licked up, swallowed, toothpick. Not the way, not spit it out. It's prasadam, it's Krishna. Devotee was sitting in the room. He saw Prabhupada with the toothpick. Well, Prabhupada, he said, I should go, because he had taken, I'll go brush my teeth. Prabhupada said, no, do that before you have prasadam, not after. Afterwards, you have to clean properly. You can take some water, swish it around, swallow Krishna prasadam. He said, for every grain of rice you leave on your plate, you take another birth. Yes. 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 That was Prabhupada. Everything, every moment, Krishna. Because pure devotee sees Krishna in everything and in everyone. He doesn't see, so I don't want to, not going to talk to this person, not going to, no. Prabhupada was so wonderful. If you came in the room, he was talking with you. He made you feel like you were the most special person, right, Bali? He made you so special. He didn't look at his watch, well, now I have to go do this, now I have to do that. No, just sit and talk. Only thing that broke that was if I walked in with his plate of prasadam. Then that's Krishna, Krishna prasadam. As soon as you did that, I put the plate down on the table. Prabhupada sat on the floor on a straw mat. Didn't have dining room table, chairs, no, sat right on the floor. And the table was against the wall, not looking at anyone, not talking to anyone, honor prasadam. But if people were in the room, he had a very nice way, gentlemanly. Prabhupada was gentleman, devotees are gentlemen. So he'd go sit down at the plate and he'd say, come here. And they'd come and he'd hand them each whatever, a piece of fruit, a sweet, say, now you can go. That was it, finished. Prasadam's there, you don't. He said, now my duty, take prasadam. That's also service, huh? We say prasadam seva. It's a service. We have a bit of time, and now you have speakers all through the day to hear from. Very wonderful speakers. I've been asked to go to 10 o'clock. If anyone, you have any questions, comments, otherwise I can continue. Yes, Prabhu. Is there water somewhere?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
One of the things which we find in your experiences is that Hare Krishna. So one of the things which we find in your experiences is that the words of Prabhupada went deep into the heart. Words of Prabhupada went deep into the heart. And it was spoken like 1 or 2 times, sometimes some statements. But in our case, we do a lot of sadhana also, a lot of hearing also. A lot of now gadgets have come where we can continuously hear. But those statements don't go deep into the heart. So what's the reason where we can improve that those statements go deep into heart?
Other essential yes. You need to repeat to everyone?
For everyone. For everyone, you can repeat.
Go ahead, say it again.
Hare Krishna. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. So one of the things which I observed in your talk was that the statements of Prabhupada went deep into our hearts, into your hearts, although it was spoken 1 or 2 times in various instances. In our case, we have modern gadgets where we have mobile laptops, we hear a lot of lectures. but we don't find that that kind of entrance into the heart happens. So where we are going wrong and how we can improve that, the statements go deep into our heart.
So much reading is there, but what are we understanding? When we read, then what are we learning? We're Krishna's servant. Right? What's that mean? You have to serve. We used to say in New Vrindavan, we used to say there's two kinds of people, bookworm and earthworm. Bookworm, I just want to read something. No, I'm reading. What are you reading? Tells you to do service. Service. I saw that with Prabhupada, he told me so many wonderful stories about his childhood, about different things. He didn't just ring his bell, call me in the room and start telling me things. I was massaging him. I was doing my service. And through my service, I always saw it was through my service, he would give so much back. That's reciprocal. Yeah, service is there, then reciprocation is there. Not just one way. So service, most important. We say, what is the principles? Prabhupada, we heard he wrote down on paper, was in Hawaii. What was first most important thing? What's most important?
Chanting.
Health. Your health. Without health, nothing else happens. Nothing. Well, most important, you have to be healthy. That, of course, spiritual and material health, right? But health. Second, he said chanting. Third was seva. Then reading. Not reading and seva. You have to do service. That's what I always saw with Srila Prabhupada. Service is important. Look at Radhanath Maharaj. He spent those years in New Vrindavan. What did Prabhupada want in New Vrindavan? Take care of the cows, 7 temples. Never happened. 50 years later, I think they made one small temple in the last 5 years or so, maybe 10 years. Maharaj, didn't happen for him in New Vrindavan. He came here, fulfilled Srila Prabhupada's desire, which was very close to his heart. He made, we may call it Govardhan Ecovillage. We can call it New Vrindavan, New Vrindavan, New Vrindavan 2.0. It's what he did here, Prabhupada's desire. And because he was sincere, it's exploded more than anyone can imagine, and it just keeps increasing. So that desire has to be there, to do seva, to do service. Not just we say lip service. What do they say? You have to walk the talk. Like us. Like me now, what is my service at this time? I'm not going to do construction work. I'm not going to watch pots, so my back wouldn't last. But I can speak something to encourage, to do service. I asked a devotee, took care of us all the time in Ujjain. I said, so what do you do here? Well, he's going courses. He's finishing his courses this week, next week or something. I said, well, what else do you do? What service do you do? Not just go to these classes 1-2 hours a day, 3 hours. What else are you doing? He said, well, I do miscellaneous things. He said, whatever I ask them, I do that. Whatever they ask me, I do. That's very nice. That's what it means. You ask to do something, you do it. And even if you're not asked, you see something needs to be done. If you can do it, you do it. Mayapur, so many things happened in Mayapur. There's a morning, Prabhupada's going out for the morning walk. Of course, there's leaf plates here, things all over the place. Prabhupada said, why is it so dirty? What did the devotee say? Well, now it's japa time. It's not japa time. Somebody has to clean. You don't finish your japa and then do the deities if you don't. Things have to go on all the time. Cleanliness, most important thing. In the deity worship, Prabhupada said, jewelry not so important. Cleanliness. We say cleanliness, punctuality, most important things. Everything else comes after. So we have to understand what's important and then do that. Do what's important. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Yes? Well, okay.
Can I ask?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much. You mentioned about Prabhupada toothpicking and swallowing it. And usually, I guess we are taught to squash, throw it out. Could you understand my question?
What was that? A toothpick, yes?
Usually, after taking prasadam, we
You don't spit out prashadam, not one piece, not one speck. That's whatever you're taught then is not what Prabhupada taught.
So what is the proper thing? So are we?
Proper thing is all the prashadam should go down.
Okay, Amen.
Whatever goes into the mouth should go down, not down some nasty drain, not down in the toilet. No, it should go down in there. It's prashadam. Every speck is prashadam. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, we're taught so many things. That's why you have to understand the books. I remember talking about Vani and Vapu. Some years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I met Prajumna. Him and I, we served Prabhupada together for years. And Panditji, Prabhupada called him Panditji. Once he looked at me and called him Banditji. You know what a bandit is? Bandit. He called him Banditji. He would have books, so many books. He says he doesn't read any of them, just carrying these books. Prabhupada loved him. He called him Panditji. Anyway, he said to me, he said, there's three things in Krishna consciousness. You have the books, you have the deities, and the guru. He said the books are passive. Just like you're reading books, I'm reading, everyone's reading books. But if we ask opinions of certain things, you'll get 100 different answers. So that means it's passive. It depends on our own understanding, our own realization. The deities. Deities also passive. We have pujaris sticking pins into the deity. Do they know that's Krishna? If the pujari actually understand the deity is Krishna, none different. He's not going to be rubbing pins. He's not going to be pulling out a flute, scratching the hand of Krishna, right? So that's also passive. Only one active principle, the guru. And that's why you have to accept guru. That's why guru is most important. He can cut through all of your nonsense. Prabhupada said, devotee said to Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya doesn't say anything about taking initiation. Does he say anything? You read anything? Chaitanya Charitamrita? Anyone know? Where does he say? He doesn't say the words, but what does he say? You chant it every morning. What do you do after Mangalarti, Tulsi Puja? What do you usually say? Shashastakam. What's the very first verse? Next. Chunadapi Sunichena. What does that mean? To become humbler than a blade of grass. What does it mean? Prabhupada said it means you must take initiation from a living guru. Not somebody that can't tell you anything. I'm taking initiation from Prabhupada. I'm not dealing with all these nonsense Westerners things. They're all fallen. I'll take it from Prabhupada. What's Prabhupada telling you? I beg Prabhupada every day, tell me, Prabhupada, tell me. Only thing I hear in my head is, you already know. Why are you asking me again? Same thing. We know what to do because Guru has instructed us. So you take a Guru to become humble. Like I said, you say black, he'll say, no, it's white. That's what Prabhupada did. He chastised us just to make you humble. So we have to become humble. We become humble by he sees what you need. And if he doesn't, then he's not even a guru. Huh? If he just wants to play nice, be nice to everyone, don't want to offend my disciples, no, that's not a guru. Guru's business is chastising. Prabhupada said, that's my business. When Krishna Balaram Mandir was open, beautiful, 1975, beautiful, gorgeous temple. It was pinkish, the pillars were white and pinkish, marble dust was done, and then this very lightish green was so pretty. And Prabhupada's on the morning walk. And Tamal Krishna said there, and Saurabh there, who did everything, design, construction. And Tamal Krishna said, Prabhupada, he said, Tamal said, Prabhupada, Saurabh, it's such a wonderful thing, this temple so beautiful. He said, yes, everyone tells me Saurabh has done so nice. He said, but all I do is chastise him. He said, but that's my service. That's my service. He also praised, he did that as well. But chastising came more often. I heard Prabhupada say very nice things about me, but he didn't say it to me, he would say it to other people. I had in Vrindavan, 1972, Kartik, devotees came from New Vrindavan, they brought sandash. Kirtanananda Swami had made. Prabhupada's favorite sweet. He said it was a tonic. He didn't call it a sweet. He said it was a tonic. So he brought sandash. And then I had made sandash. So now we had Kirtanananda's sandash, who taught me, and I had my sandash. So at lunch, I put it on the plate. 2 of Kirtanananda's sandash, 2 of Shrutakirti's sandash. And Prabhupada finished his lunch and he ate the sandash. And I went in the room, I asked, I said, Prabhupada, how was the sandash? He looked at me, he said, oh, you made it? I said, well, 2 were from Kirtanananda, 2 were from me. He said, very good. He said that the 3 other people never said anything to me. He told Janani Vas, Shrutakirti makes first-class sandash. He never told me I made first-class sandash. Because that's their business. They don't want to flatter you, puff you up. They got to keep you humble. I'm out of time. I could tell you so many humble stories. Prabhupada humbling me, chastising me. Knowing what's always knew what was in my head all the time. Yes, Prabhupada. So no, you don't spit it out. How can you spit out prasadam? In New Dwarka, he was going up the stairs. I'm right behind him. He sees a bead bag hanging on a doorknob. He's walking up the stairs, he looks at me. He says, who's left their bead bag crying on the doorknob? Did you ever see a bead bag cry? I never see. Now I do. I see a bead bag crying. Wait, well, grab your beads and chant. Who left it there? The very next day, he's walking up the stairs. I'm right there. He sees a plate of prasadam sitting on a radiator, heating thing, radiator. He looks at me. Who's left their prasadam crying on the table? By the second time, I realized everything is personal. We're all impersonalists. That's why we have to learn how to become personal, because Krishna is in everything, everywhere. We read these things all the time. He's in every atom, between every atom. But do you understand it? Do you realize it? Do you practice it so you can realize it? That's what the process is. Okay?
Thank you.
So whoever told you, you tell them, you're wrong. You're wrong. You don't spit out even a little speck of prasadam. All right. Okay. When I was reading Krishna book to him every day in the garden, he didn't ever say to me, one day he did. That's another, he didn't say, okay, you read. He would just look at me. I'm holding the Krishna book. He'd just look. That meant, now you read. Literally, you have to know how to read the spiritual master, how to read every move he makes, everything he does. Why is he doing it? You watch Maharaj. I watch Maharaj offering his obeisances every day, offering his dandavats every day. Do you do like that? Or you do the little quickie? Prabhupada called hatchet. Don't do the hatchet. Prabhupada came down his stairs in Juhu way back, 1973. He was up on the second floor in a flat. He walked down the stairs for the morning walk. 20 devotees are there, every devotee living in the temples there, maybe a few others. Everyone, boom, dandavats. One young devotee stood there, just wanting to see Prabhupada with his hands folded. Didn't do dandavat. Prabhupada started walking, he looked at me. He said, that's the beginning of his fall down. Huh? How easy it is. He said, that's the beginning of his fall down. He didn't offer obeisances. How many times will you walk in and out of this room? I offered obeisances this morning a few times. I'm done for the day. I offered obeisances 50 times a day, going in and out of Prabhupada's room. 10 times during lunch in 20 minutes. Every time I brought in a chapati, boom, obeisances. Back to the kitchen, boom, another chapati, more obeisances. Give me some more dal. I'd come in with dal, put the dal and offer obeisances. 50 times a day sometimes. He never said you reached your quota for the day. No more obeisances are necessary for you. The more you offer obeisances, the better. It might be the only good thing you do all day is offer your respects to your guru. Everything else you might be a nonsense. At least offer obeisances as soon as you see him. This is how Prabhupada taught me. He didn't say, okay, that's enough. He said the exact opposite. His Sanskrit editor came in while I'm giving Prabhupada massage before lunch. Sanskrit editor wasn't Prajumna, different one. And he came in, first time he came in to ask Prabhupada a question, and he offered obeisances, not dandavats, we would offer obeisances. And then he sat up and had a question, Prabhupada answered. And 5 minutes later he came back again with another question. He offered obeisances, but it wasn't, could tell it wasn't full of saying the full prayer. Sat up and asked Prabhupada a question. 10 minutes later he came in the room. He went like that. Prabhupada said, you offer obeisances, not this hatchet. You know what a hatchet is, right? Axe, you know, it's what you cut down the trees. Prabhupada used a hatchet, his own spiritual life, and he left. He was gone, disappeared. And the whole other story you don't need to hear right now. But it's just about 10 o'clock, so I think I need to finish here. No. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You have so many wonderful God brothers to hear from. They got maybe left and came back. Abhinanda Prabhu is here. He posts beautiful pictures of Prabhupada every day. He's become famous just posting videos and pictures of Srila Prabhupada on Facebook. And Shruti, you definitely want to hear from Shruti Prabhu about his difficulty in South Africa. I'm not going to tell you, but he has some really amazing stories about his time in South Africa. And then also Bali Mridam Prabhu, President, New York City, GBC. So many wonderful stories I've heard from him myself. So please stay and hear from all of my God brothers.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we are very grateful to Shrutakirti Prabhu for sharing so many pastimes about Prabhupada. Yesterday when I went to his room and I asked Prabhuji, you have to share Prabhupada's pastime. Vishaka Mataji told, he can't sleep. I don't know why. Well, the whole night he will meditate on Prabhupada, that what is going to speak tomorrow. So good, you told 2 nights only. Otherwise 3 days, then 3 days he will be meditating. So that's how he has a connection with Prabhupada, that all the pastime, without seeing any notes, anything, everything is there in his heart. Just you have to ask, then the nectar comes out. We are very, very grateful, Prabhuji, for sharing Prabhupada's pastime. Let's thank Prabhuji by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So as I told, it is going to be very exciting today. So many Prabhupada disciples we have in Govardhan Ecovillage today. So the program will continue with the glorification of Prabhupada Katha here in the temple hall. And as you know, in the evening, afternoon, 4 p.m., the festival of gratitude will begin there in the Pandal. So now we have with us Abhinanda Prabhu. He is a senior disciple of Prabhupada, and Abhinanda Prabhu got connected with ISKCON in 1973, August in Seattle, and then took initiation from Prabhupada in 1974. And Prabhuji is very famous for sharing very nice pictures of Prabhupada, especially in the Facebook. If you search Abhinandan Prabhu, you will find high resolution photos of Prabhupada, so many videos of Prabhupada. So he's very famous for sharing the memories of Prabhupada. So here we have Abhinanda Prabhu. So let's welcome Abhinanda Prabhu by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So we have with us Suddhi Prabhu. Suddhi Prabhu is also one of the very senior disciple of Prabhupada. The Suddhi Prabhu is from Laguna Beach. Heard of Laguna Beach? The Suddhi Prabhu is from Laguna Beach, and Prabhuji is the one who was sent to South Africa for preaching. So His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada sent Suddhi Prabhu to South Africa for preaching, and he got connected to Prabhupada in 1971. 1971 he came to India. When Prabhupada came to India, the Suddhi Prabhu was with Prabhupada in 1971, and one very, very nice pastime Radhanath Prabhu shared with me. So it is connected with today's event also. So when Prabhupada was giving his lecture in Cross Maidan, Mumbai, that time Suddhi Prabhu was near Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was giving katha in the pandal.
Let me tell that story when the time is right. Tell them it's a special story.
Okay, it's a special story. The Prabhu is telling, don't reveal it. I'll tell from my mouth. So it's very connecting to this festival of gratitude. It's the connecting link. So we are very, very fortunate to have all these Prabhupada disciples here in the temple hall. Let's welcome all by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Thank you. Hare Krishna. It's not
Hare
working.
Krishna.
Gotta turn it on. Okay.
That's working?
Yeah. So I'll just speak for a short time, and then you
Okay.
can take over. I'll just tell the story.
Okay.
I mean, we have an hour and a half.
Hare Krishna. What?
Okay. Can you turn this on for me?
1.5 hours. Wow.
Yeah. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I was showing off, doing tricks at the top of the ski hill. And I went over the top of my skis and had a compound fracture that long, okay? It took more than 2 years to completely heal. I was lying on my back, the 6 o'clock news, the television station in Seattle, Washington, the grand opening of the Seattle temple, Jagannath Swami Nayana Pathagami Bhava Tume. There was Lord Jagannath. Those deities were brought by Srila Prabhupada from India, okay? They're still there at the Vedic Cultural Center, across the lake from where I grew up, Lake Sammamish. It's called ISKCON, Sammamish, Microsoft, Boeing. My dad was a Boeing man. So there, Gargamuni and many of the original devotees from New York and San Francisco had come up to open this temple. But it took me 5 years before I got initiated. Prabhu said August 73. That was actually my first initiation, and 74 was my second. However, it's a very interesting story. I'll speak very quickly. How did Abhinanda join Krishna consciousness? Okay, so that was in 68 when I saw Prabhupada on television. That broke my heart. I said, that's for me. At 12 years of age, I was singing in the church choir. Where is Krishna? Where is God? I was thinking, and I tried many different experimental Christian venues, but it wasn't until that ski accident at the age of 16, I said, that's what I want to be. But, you're 16, the parents, high school, which is higher secondary school, had to be completed. So I would see the devotees chanting in the university district in Seattle, but it was from a distance. It was not till 1970, when I went to first year of college, that I saw the devotees on the campus. They were wearing yellow or orange. You might have seen those photographs where the devotees are either wearing yellow or orange, and they were waving sticks of incense, and there were Back to Godhead magazine salespeople. I went up, I got a magazine probably for $0.25 or $1, and I read that magazine all night long, and I was crying all night long. I said, wow. And so I started visiting the temple. Now I'm independent. The parents are, 50 miles, 100 miles away. And I started visiting the 2 temples, one in Vancouver, Canada, and the second one in Seattle. I was near the Canadian border, northwest corner of the United States. And every chance I had on the weekends only, I would visit the temple. But then, as many of you must have experienced, since many of you are college graduates or college students, what happens in college? College Maya, right? So, wine, women, and song, etc. So, I was having a difficult time surrendering. That means I would come to the temple, be serious for a couple of days, and go back to the usual thing. So that was my hang-up. So Sukadev, a very short, I'm sure Shruti probably knows Sukadev because he's from the West Coast. Short, black, revolutionary, bad guy. If you didn't surrender to Prabhupada, he would tell you right in your face. And he pointed his finger at me one day in 1973. He said, David, get the hell out of here. I said, what? He said, yeah, you've been coming here for years and you go back to your college Maya. No, you got to get away from your friends, get away from this temple, go away somewhere in seclusion and chant Hare Krishna and follow these principles for 30 days. And chant your 16 rounds and you will shave your head and you will move into this temple.
I said, okay. So I went back to the university. I met the college professors. I was going to a Save the World college called Fairhaven, a division of Western Washington State University, where you can write your own degree. And so I told the professors what I needed to do. Didn't tell them about Hare Krishna at that time, but I had this idea. Let me go down to Central America and running through the jungle of Central America, right? The Mayans, and do a cross comparison between the Mayan culture and the Vedic. And that's what I did. Bought a $500 Volkswagen Bug, went from Canada all the way down to the Belize, at that time known as British Honduras, ran through the jungles for 1 month, got my weight down from 80 kilos to 55. I need to do that again, by the way. And then I went, and I followed the principles seriously, and I went back to Los Angeles, and there was Srila Prabhupada. I couldn't believe it. And so I sat down in the class and listened to him attentively, and when he first walked in the door, I couldn't believe it, because Prabhupada was glowing just like Jesus. And every question I had for Srila Prabhupada, he answered telepathically. I was very shy. So then I went back to my home in Seattle, hitchhiked, gave the car to the temple, and there was a letter on the wall. We need 2 devotees from every temple to come to India right now. So I volunteered, and in 1973, after almost got initiated almost immediately, because I'd been coming for a few years, and in those days, if the temple president thought you were serious, you got the initiation. So here I am now in Juhu, okay, December 1973. And Tamal Krishna Goswami, he was the GBC, Giri Raj was the temple president, and Drista Dumna was the temple commander. We slept in a rat-infested tent, right where the present temple is, with Tatpur Swami, at that time Tatpur Das Brahmachari, who later became Tatpur Swami. And I did that for 1 month, and then Tejas Prabhu, Tejas means Delhi, had requested Tamal Krishna for a new secretary, so then I went to Delhi. And there I stayed for 6 months, and after 6 months, Prabhupada was in Paris. My visa had expired, and that's where I first saw Srila Prabhupada, well, not the first time, second or third time, and enjoyed those pastimes. And then, a couple of weeks later, New Vrindavan, okay? And I had heard about a very serious, yet a devotee who was reclusive and saintly, and he lived up on the hill at the old original farm. And who do you think that was? Radhanath, Radhanath Brahmachari then. And so I was the yogurt man, you know, I had just come from India, so I made the big 50 gallons of dahi, you know. It's like, you know, 100 liters, 200 liters of dahi for the festival, because Prabhupada had come. So but I said, well, I got to go meet this person, because he was always up there. He couldn't really come down to the festival, even though Srila Prabhupada was there, because he had his service of taking care of the deities, the original deities, brass deities of New Vrindavan. So I went up there for 1 hour, hiking up the hill by myself, because, you know, nobody wanted to leave. And there he was. And I told him why I had come, and he engaged me in service for the entire day and overnight, and I helped him with the, you know, polishing the brass and, you know, cleaning the temple room. Very, you know, very nice and wonderful service. So then I really saw from that day what a wonderful devotee he was. Anyway, so that's going back and forth. So now, in India, back to India again, I came up with this idea that it was just after the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir in 1975. I was assigned by Mahamsa Swami at that time from the GBC of South India, Abhinanda, please go and assist Gaur Govinda Swami. So I was very fortunate for 6 months to be his assistant. I said, but Prabhu, I want to do the BBT library party which is what I had been trained to do. The BBT Library Party, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust Library Party, meant to put books in the libraries in India. So that was my idea, because I had gotten trained in the United States. Let's do this in India. So this was my idea. And so then Mahamsa Swami said, yes, you can do that in Bhubaneswar and help His Divine Grace Gaur Govinda Swami. So for 6 months, he was translating in front of me the Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada had ordered him to do, from English into Uriya. He never slept. All day long, dancing, jumping up and down, slamming the kartals. And Gopeshwar, my Sankirtan leader from Seattle, had joined me. And we would go back exhausted after polishing the brass, doing the Bhagavatam class, chanting our rounds, Harinam, Sankirtan, book distribution all day. And he would stay up all night translating books. Never saw him slept. And 20 years later, I ran to Madhavananda, who was a famous preacher in Orissa and India. And he told me, he couldn't believe it, because Gaur Govinda Maharaj at that time had only sleeping 10 hours a day. I mean, he was sleeping 10 hours a day because of his health. And Gaur Govinda confirmed what Abhinanda says is true. So then I was writing letters to Prabhupada. I said, why are everybody, some of my godbrothers, were bothering Gaur Govinda Swami? And said, this is the first person, Srila Prabhupada, that reminds me of you. And he wrote back to me, you are a very intelligent boy. So then, one day at Anandaniketan, I had arrived, this was going back 1 year, in 1974 in Delhi. Tejas means Delhi. Tejas was very austere. We had an ambassador. No, we take the bus everywhere to meet all of the leading dignitaries, the government officers, to arrange for the property permits for building the Krishna Balaram Mandir, Juhu, and Mayapur. That was our job. And we carried one hand a Samsonite briefcase, the other the book bag. We would jump on the third-class train. I had to compete with the coolies. Get on the train first and get up there and save that hard bench, third-class unreserved bench, right? That was my job. And then Prabhupada came. And he was sitting up on a stage at this very beautiful red plush velvet room, and all the businessmen, and they were wearing suits and ties. And Prabhupada he's giving the class, he reaches in with his right little pinky finger, and he sticks it up his nose. We're like, oh my God, what is Prabhupada doing? He goes like this, right? And a big booger, a big crusty one, comes on his fingers. And he holds it up like this, and he drops it. We're like watching. And then Prabhupada picks up a glass and he washes his hand like magic. And later that same evening, I was assigned to be Prabhupada's guard. And when I looked through Prabhupada's, it was on the terrace where the servants' quarters are. And I looked through the window of Srila Prabhupada's room because the curtain was open. He was hovering like that far off the bed. So then I thought, okay, am I seeing things, or is that my imagination, or what? It was glowing. So later on, I decided, let me put these books in the libraries in India, like I said. So to make it's a very long story, I'll make it very quick. But we had written a letter to Prabhupada that the Seattle temple where I joined Prabhupada should donate, finance, and maintain a van in India for the libraries. We were just going by bus. There was no money. I had told Srila Prabhupada that they wouldn't even give us books on credit. We were just simple brahmacharis. Prabhupada wrote back, take books and spend for your expenses. So then, BBT Bombay gave us the books and we didn't have to pay for them because that's how we used that money. We used to pay for our, activity, which is putting books, selling books to the libraries. So anyways, we wrote that letter to Srila Prabhupada, and it was his reply, we asked his secretary, please send it to Seattle. Guess what? When we got to Seattle, that the letter was not there. It had been confiscated because it meant that the Seattle temple would have an expense that they may or may not be able to afford. 20 years later, Ekanath Prabhu shows me that letter from Srila Prabhupada, that yes, it's a very good idea that the Seattle temple maintain and finance, and on your party in India, it will be very good that you have an Indian devotee accompany you. But we never saw that letter. We started crying. We called Jayatirtha, the same person that Prabhu Shrutakirti talked about. And Jayatirtha said, well, I think we got something for you. Speak to Rameshwar. Rameshwar Prabhu was in charge of BBT. And so I spoke to Rameshwar, and he said, yeah, Gargamuni is here. I said, Gargamuni Swami? And he said, yes. He has been traveling all over America. He's collected 120,000, like 1 crore of rupees, okay, to buy 6 vans for the Mayapur Chandradoya worldwide traveling Sankirtan party. Because he was the temple president in Calcutta, and Prabhupada had asked him to collect for Mayapur, right? So what we did was then, Bahushra and myself, he's a Prabhupada disciple from Berkeley. We went out in the street with a can down by the grocery store, and we collected money to pay for our ticket to get down to Los Angeles as soon as possible. And it was very mystical. As soon as we got out of the vehicle, it takes about 15 minutes to get from the airport in LA to Rukmini Dwarkadish. All of a sudden, a white van pulls up, a big one. The window gets rolled down. It's Gargamuni Swami. And he said, hey, I heard about you guys. You got a passport? I said, yes. Do you know how to drive? I said, yes. Well, we're flying next week to Frankfurt, Germany. Karandar's already there, buying 6 vans from the factory, 6 Mercedes. And one of them is for you. So we arrive in Germany, Hansa and the Dudas, Satyanandan Swami, Bhakti Vaibhava Swami, all brahmacharis, and many other great pioneers of ISKCON Germany are all there. And we danced like madmen for a couple of weeks while Karandar was getting the vehicles and arranging the visas for the next 25 countries that we had to cross to get to Mayapur. So in the middle of the winter, after Christmas, we enter into the Turkish Alps, and on 10 meters of snow on each side of the road. And the lorry is blocking the way. We have chains on the tires to get up to that, to get over the pass. We get out with our dhotis and shovels, and we clean the way to get around that vehicle. We get down to the other side of the mountain, and the river is there. The water, the snow is melting. We have to cross a river. The water is only about this deep, very shallow. And so Bahushra, I'm driving. I was the only driver. Bahushra didn't know how to drive. Now he learned how to drive just recently. And he's jumping up and down in the back of the van like this. He was very big, And that way we maintained the traction so we didn't go into the river. Now we're approaching Iran. At that time, it was not the Ayatollah, it was the Shah. And Aitreya Rishi Prabhu was there, and we hung out there for about 5 days, Navayovana, Manjari, and great oranges, unbelievable sweet oranges. And at that time, the women were wearing normal clothes. Cello, Pakistan, and then before Pakistan, Afghanistan. And there, Killer Keshava Das, bought cauliflowers the size of a basketball. And he cut those in half and basted or with a spoon, ghee on the cauliflower. Gargamuni had brought sour cream for Prabhupada all the way from New Vrindavan. He had frozen it on dry ice. So finally we get to India, and Prabhupada sees the vans. He's so happy. And another revolutionary thing that Gargamuni had done is get a Brahmin cook known as Shantilal from Udaipur, from Srinathji. At that time, the sannyasis and other devotees were complaining, Gargamuni has a karmi cook. He's in Maya, Prabhupada. But Prabhupada said, well, let me taste that prasadam. So we were in Mayapur, out of the van. One of the vans was a cooking vehicle. One vehicle was a vehicle shamayana, circus tents for the pandals. One was for the libraries, one was Harinam, one was for street distribution, okay? So then, and one was for the libraries. One was for life membership. Gargamuni Swami and Sridhar Swami, they were partners. Subhag Swami was there, Kirti Raj, later Vyasaki, Satyanarayan, Mahavishnu Swami, Prabhavishnu Swami, brahmacharis. We're all brahmacharis. So in total about 15 devotees in the beginning. It later became 40 devotees. But anyways, Prabhupada tasted the prasadam. Oh, it's incredible. Prabhupada, I saw the letter from Shanti Lal. I hereby ordered the GBC to pay for Shanti Lal's airplane ticket, and he should travel to every temple in the movement and teach people how to cook. That's how incredible his prasadam was. He made puris and sabji and served Prabhupada sour cream from New Vrindavan. This is after 2 months, because it was kept on dry ice, which is very cold. You know, minus, super cold. Dry ice, you know what dry ice is? Is there a Hindi word for dry ice? Or in Marathi or Gujarati? I don't know what it is. It's subs. Okay, so then we're traveling across from Mayapur. Prabhupada was very pleased that we brought these 6 vehicles for different purposes. And as we travel from Mayapur to Banaras, Allahabad, to Nainital, then to Rishikesh, Prabhupada only wants to hear about the library distribution. That was Prabhupada's, one of his favorite programs in 1960s before he came to America was what? Put his Bhagavatam sets into the libraries all over Delhi. In fact, I saw one recently, the 1963 signature of Srila Prabhupada in one of those volumes in the National Library. So Srila Prabhupada, Gargamuni was perplexed. Well, what about life membership? Because he was famous for being one of the best membership makers, right? So as we entered into getting closer to Vrindavan, as we were driving to Vrindavan, that's where Prabhupada was, Srila Prabhupada orders in writing, I want that all 6 vehicles be converted to BBT Library Party. So Mayapur Chandradoya Worldwide Traveling Sankirtan Party became the BBT Library Party India. And I became kind of like, you know, famous for that. Anyways, not that I'm famous, but anyways. So then we arrive in Vrindavan. This is 1976, just after the Mayapur festival. We had driven for 6 weeks, you know, in the winter time, and then got there just in time for Mayapur festival, okay? So Prabhupada, I had never met before. I was just a young boy. And we had done, you know, initiation, et cetera, but it's not the same thing. And like, you know, Shrutakirti had so much association, but most of us, very little. Because Prabhupada, we were instructed that Srila Prabhupada is very busy, very busy. Do not bother him. He's engaged in translation work. So I thought, let me do something nice for Krishna. So Krishna will want to see me. And I was thinking of Prabhupada, of course. Didn't expect to see Krishna. So then I was chanting japa, Hare Krishna, near where the samadhi is. You've probably all been to Vrindavan, you know where the samadhi is. And I was chanting Hare Krishna near the gate, you know, next to the main road, near, you know, where the samadhi is now. And I'm Hare Krishna, you know, I'm turning around. You know, like sometimes we chant japa and we turn around in a circle like that. And out of the corner of my eye, Paramahansa Krishnadas Babaji enters into the property, Prabhupada's godbrother. And he comes up off the air and starts doing a scissor kick. And I didn't see that. He disappeared. And I saw him as I was by the time I turned around, he was walking into Prabhupada's house in a fraction of a second. And he goes into whatever he was associated with Prabhupada. He would giggle and they would laugh like 2 cowherd boys. And then he left shortly. After a few minutes, he left. And then all of a sudden, the next Gopal Krishna Maharaj, at that time Adhikari, had been talking to Srila Prabhupada in his quarters, and he comes running to me. I'm still up there by the Samadhi. And he said, Abhinanda, Prabhupada wants to meet you. Would you, he asked the question like, yeah, Gopal. He said, would you like to meet him? And of course, I said yes. And of course, very afraid. And I walked behind Gopal Krishna Maharaj to Prabhupada's house. And I'm sure many of you have been there. And he has those black framed glasses, just like behind the table you see him today, in his murti form. And they fell down a little bit over his nose for a minute as I entered into the room. Paramahansa Swami was Prabhupada's secretary at the time. Many times Shrutakirti or later Harisari, or they would sometimes have to go somewhere. So Paramahansa was taking care of Prabhupada at that time. And I was thinking, there's going to be a lot of devotees in there, no problem. I opened up the door, it's only Prabhupada and a little boy, meaning me. So I offer my obeisances from about 20 meters, 15 meters away. And he goes like this, come closer, right? So now I'm about 3 meters away. Like Prabhupada's come. So now I'm sitting right in front, like you're sitting right in front of his table. And now, so I have to stand up. And I'm Prabhupada sitting on the gutty, and I'm standing right here, almost touching his knee, this close to his eyes, this close to his face. And the glasses drop down over his nose. He looks right into my eyes. Thank you very much. Is there anything that I can do for you? Oh my God, I couldn't control tears bursted out of my eyes like torrents of rain, and I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't compose myself. Then Prabhupada said, he wanted to talk with me, strategic planning. So then I sat down in front of the desk, and I couldn't stop crying then, because Prabhupada said, okay, just sit down, let's talk, He didn't say that, but that's what he meant. And then I kept crying and crying like a little baby or whatever. That's how I think of it now. But anyways, that was the power. That was the initiation. That was the Shakti that I cannot explain. It was like, boom, right? It just gave it to me, the blessings. And so then I sat down, and after that, I couldn't stop crying. Then he said, okay, you can go. And so then I left. And after that, I never met Prabhupada again personally, but we corresponded by letter. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Dinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharne Nirviseshi Shunyavati Pastacha Desatarne. I'll talk a little bit about how Prabhupada was always very sure of what he was doing and how he did and taught us how to plant the seeds of devotion that would bring people to Krishna consciousness. I first found this out when I went to a music festival a little while ago. Well, 1967, I guess that's more than a little while ago. And at the end of this big concert, the Mystic Arts World people, they had the vegetarian food booth, and they're singing this song. And I said, what's this song? They said, a Swami named Prabhupada on Pico Boulevard in LA taught us that. Sing it with us. And it went like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when this is chanted by the pure devotee, and then the other people spread it to you, just by participating, you take a step to Krishna, and he in turn takes 10 steps to you. So a few days later, a friend of mine was shooting at some animals, and then he squished a dove. A dove isn't a kabutar, a dove is a kura. You know the bird kura? Sometimes called a dora. But anyway, they're not like the pigeons. The pigeons go after many sex partners. the dove, the couple stays together and they do everything together. And they're the bird of peace. So when he squished the dove, I said, that's a cruel thing to do. He said, you eat meat, don't you? I said, yes. He said, how many animals do they have to kill for you to eat meat? I said, probably a lot. He said, so does it make me any worse to kill one more bird? I said, you're right. He said, so it's okay for me to kill the bird? I said, no, I'll never eat meat again. And this is what happens when people hear the mantra or they get a book. The next thing that happened was my friends, the Mystic Arts, had a big store with health food and clothing, and they had a spiritual book part. So my friends would ask me to watch it for 5 minutes, but 5 minutes seemed to take 30 minutes. And I found a book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya that said, Bhakti just means we ask God for some way to serve him. So I had my special meditation rock I would go to. I would pray for some way to develop love of God. And the devotees would tell the people in the mystic arts world and the Laguna Beach, like higher thinking vegetarian people, that someday for real spiritual life, you have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. So I'd heard this, that someday, not today, later, right? So on January 5th, 1970, I'm on my rock and I'm praying for some way to develop love of God. Because I heard this in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. All of a sudden I got this real strong feeling that if I want that, I have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. I said, well, it's January. What I'll do is go to a few more parties, date 2 or 3 more girls from my high school class, and then in June, I'll give it up then. And I'm thinking, no, if it's not a good idea, I shouldn't do it. If it is, you should do it now, right? Because Krishna's pushing me, and I'll tell you why. I said, okay, God, whoever you are, this is kind of a big order, but I'll give up these things, even though I got several girls in mind I want to go out with. I'll give these things up, and you send me some way to develop love for you. And I thought, how long will it take? A week, a month, a year? And I opened my eyes, and as far away as people seeing the deities are, was a devotee in saffron walking towards me. And I thought, Hare Krishna, that's what I'm supposed to do? So he came up to me, and I said, what are you doing here at the beach? He says, well, we were up on the hill above the next beach, and we were chanting. And all of a sudden, I felt this uncontrollable compulsion to come down to the beach. He said, would you like to come and chant with us? I said, I think that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So they told me about the Gita class. This was on Wednesday. So I went to the Gita class on Wednesday. And then they told me about the Sunday feast on Sunday. So I went to the Sunday feast, and my friend Bob Morrell was there. And I said, wow, how long have you been coming? He said, August of '69. I said, wow, you've been coming since the 60s. I didn't come till January of '70. So then what happened, a few weeks later, Prabhupada came back to LA. So myself and Glenn Collin, who became Bayahari, and Bob Morrell, who became Bhadranarayan Swami, we would stay at the temple Saturday night, and we would help them make a feast, and then we would get our cars, and we'd all drive to Los Angeles for a second feast with Prabhupada. And it was funny because one time we were talking, and a friend of ours, Jim Hill, walked up and said, you guys should come to that Krishna temple. I know all those devotees. I'll introduce you. I said, yeah, come on Sunday. And so he didn't come while we were doing the cooking. He didn't come for the class. But when prasadam came, he came. And we were there in Dodis serving out prasadam. He was so embarrassed, he left. And I thought, if somebody knows something more than me, like Bob Morell, Badri was already there, I was happy that someone knew something more than me. I always tell devotees, don't be threatened if someone's better at you than something, unless it's knife fighting and they're chasing you with one. Then you should be threatened. But not that they know how to sing and know philosophy. So, the second time we went to see Prabhupada, everyone would line up for Prabhupada to touch on the head as he was leaving. And there was no room for me, so I knelt in the street. But when Prabhupada came up, the car door opened like this, so he walked right past me. But when the door shut, he's looking at me, and he gets back out and says, "Oh, Hare Krishna," and touches me on the head. And it was great because Badri Narayan and myself were in a philosophy class where there was 14 people, 11 were vegetarians. And we told the teacher about the temple in Los Angeles. So we had a field trip where the whole class went, and we talked about the experience at the temple for the whole next week. And my mother went, she thought I should come and find out too, and one of her friends came, he was an older man, he bowed down, and we got up, Prabhupada was there, and Prabhupada grabbed his hand, and he's going, look, look, Prabhupada grabbed my hand. So when high school was over, I went to Europe with my parents, and I ended up staying at the Paris temple. And then speaking of praying, one day it was freezing cold, like Shrutakirti was talking about letting in the snow. The French boy is opening the window, letting in the snow, and we didn't have heat or electricity. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Set to an austerity." So I said, "Okay, Krishna, I'll make you a deal. You get me out of this cold, I promise never ever to complain about heat ever. I don't mind winter as long as it's a winter like this one, right? This is my favorite kind of winter. Unless I'm in the southern hemisphere where winter is summer. I'll be there in 2 days. So 3 days later, a letter came from Prabhupada saying, please send 3 devotees to India. So we got on a plane, it was snowing. We got off, it was 30 degrees. That's not so much. But 30 degrees is hot when you started. So we took the train from Delhi to Mumbai. And boy, people come to the train stations in Gujarat and Rajasthan to see. They'd seen brahmacharis and Westerners, but never 3 Western brahmacharis. So my beads had already been sent to Mumbai to be chanted on by Prabhupada. And when I got there, some devotee says, yes, Prabhupada said that I'm a very young boy. He said, you must take care of him. So you'd see the older devotees. Some of us were so young, someone said, did you hear what happened to Tamal Krishna? I said, no. They said, he became 24. I said, 24? Shai Sundar said, that's nothing, I'm 29. Thought, 29, that's really old. I hope we didn't insult anybody. Just in case there's someone here that's over 29. Anybody here over 29? At least a couple, right? Okay. But that was considered old then. So what was interesting is Prabhupada had already chanted on my beads, but I was going to be in the initiation ceremony. And fortunately, this was 71, this was March 29, and at the Akash Ganga building on Warden Road, I think it's that way, right? I watched everything Prabhupada would do, and he was very deliberate about it. So it got time for the initiations, and Prabhupada had initiated a couple people. There was Govardhan, there was Mahamsa, who became Mahamsa Swami, Govardhan and his wife Padmavati. When Prabhupada got to me, he was just about to chant on my beads. All of a sudden, he stops and thinks. He tells Guru Das, go out there and get the Western yogi and bring him up here. And Prabhupada put my beads down for a second. I'm going, this is interesting. There's no Western yogis out there. Who's he talking about? Guru Das says, there's no Westerners out there. Prabhupada says, go straight back there and bring the Western yogi up. Guru Das says, there's no one there. Prabhupada says, no, look back there. It's like he's saying it before it's happening, right? Then all of a sudden, a Western yogi walked into there, and Prabhupada said, see right there, bring him up here. And I thought, this is interesting, how Prabhupada is pointing this before it even happened. He's like predicting this, right? So then Prabhupada told him, you sit right here. And I had a feeling, this person is like magical. He's going to become someone important in our movement. And then Prabhupada chanted on my beads, and he gave me my name. And afterwards, when the kirtan was going on, both me and this person were jumping up and down really high. And Prabhupada looked at both of us, and he smiled. And then he looked at Tamal Krishna, and then he turned, and both Tamal Krishna and Prabhupada were looking at us and smiling. It was like Tamal Krishna was like a right-hand man to Prabhupada in many things, and they were like giving us a special blessing. And that person became Radhanath Swami. And Prabhupada was seeing him before he even showed up, right? Be like if they said, oh, meet me before I come, before I knew about it. And so it was interesting how he told him to sit right there. And one of the things I see he does that's important, well, it's a whole matter of thinking, and it's not one thing that I try to emulate. That's something in our movement, is that we take care of our own spiritual life. Obviously, Radhanath Swami takes good care of his own spiritual life. He has his projects that he takes very good care of, but when he goes other places in the world, he attends to those people's spiritual life. But he's also very favorable and promotes the temple of the Vedic planetarium, because we each have our own spiritual life and we each have our own temples. But the temple of the Vedic planetarium is our joint venture project. It's something we're all doing together for the glory of Lord Chaitanya and for the glory of Krishna consciousness. And you see, even though I'm busy with too many other things, it's hard to do something else when you're busy, but you see he promotes that. He had Braj Vilas come to all the major events to try to promote that. And that's why from business the family does, I give to the Temple of Vedic Planetarium a large amount of money. And it's going to take a large amount more, isn't it? So we go on many engagements with Prabhupada in Mumbai, and I got to go on walks with Prabhupada many times. One time we were walking in the Hanging Gardens, which is near the Radha Gopinath Mandir in Chowpatty. And these impersonalist Swamis said, do you want to come to our ashram? We said, well, Prabhupada, if you want to go, we'll go. And Prabhupada said, not like that. If we all want to go, I said, well, fine, let's go. So Prabhupada's just sitting next to me. And even though I'm American, I had come a few months before from France, and Prabhupada just turns to me and says, you came, and it was interesting being this close, looking in Prabhupada's eyes like that. He said, you just came from France, didn't you? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I did. And another time he did something like that was when the night before we'd been bombed. And so we picked up newspapers to see what else had been bombed. And I'm looking at one newspaper and Prabhupada's looking at another. Prabhupada says, can we trade newspapers? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. He says, no, when you're through. And I'm thinking, he's almost 18 and he's a spiritual master. He's almost 80, I'm 18. And he's the spiritual master. And yet he's asking me this. And that war thing was pretty intense because I used to get to spend 3 times alone with Prabhupada every day. Because it was during the war, we couldn't have like a loud Mangal Artik. So I'd do the Mangal Artik alone. And Prabhupada would come out from his room and I would offer the flower and hand it to Prabhupada directly. And then at noontime, I would go to bring Prabhupada his plate. Jamuna, who was like the best cook, would make this big plate for the deities, Radha Ras Bihari, and then they transfer that to Prabhupada's plate, huge plate. then I would take that into Prabhupada's room and I would put away the Sanskrit commentaries that Prabhupada was using to translate. There was one by Sridhar Swami, one by Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And I could see, I felt like you say, a fish bowl, a fish can't hide anywhere, right? I felt like there's no hiding from Prabhupada. He can see and know everything you're doing. So I'd give Prabhupada his plate, and then I'd go out with one other devotee. We'd serve the other devotees their prasadam, and they would leave, and then I'd go back and get Prabhupada's plate, and I'd clean it off and put it all on one big plate, and everybody was gone. So for a couple months, what Prabhupada left over was what I got to eat for my prasadam. And I thought it was pretty special that it just worked out that way. And then I got to be alone with Prabhupada. Also, I used to do the evening artik. And after the artik, I would go in and put the water on Prabhupada's head and give Prabhupada the flower. And the day after we'd been bombed, I went into Prabhupada's room. When we're being bombed, I'm doing the artik. And out the deities were this way and the ocean was there. Out the window, I could see the bombs dropping on the beach area. Fortunately, it wasn't a little farther. It would have been right on our building. At night, they'd turn out the lights, and if any building turned on a light, 1,000 people would scream, "Band karo, Band karo," because if a light's on, that's where Pakistan would bomb. So I'm doing the artik, and boom, boom, bombs are dropping, and I think, this is dangerous, isn't it? I tell people, yes, I was in Mumbai when the war was going on. They said, war? I said, that means you weren't alive yet. You would remember if they dropped bombs. You don't forget that kind of thing, do you? So the next day I was in such anxiety. I'm thinking, it's not safe here. And I put the water on Prabhupada's head. And it's funny, I see Vishaka now, because when I went in Prabhupada's room, Tamal Krishna, Yadubara, and Vishaka were there. And they were talking with Prabhupada. Prabhupada stopped them. He says, just a minute. And he looked up at me. And he said, is everything all right? And just like that, the anxiety went away. I'm thinking, where did that anxiety go? And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, it is all right now. It just went away. And the next day, my mother called from America, which, you didn't just get on a phone. There was no cell phone anywhere. It took days to get a call. So she called and said, I read about or saw the TV, I don't know, that Pakistan had bombed Mumbai. She said, do you want to come home? I said, no, I'm safe here with Prabhupada. And that's the way we felt, as we were safe with Prabhupada, even when bombs were dropping. So pretty soon it came time, again, we're talking about this temple of the Vedic planetarium. During this time, we were just getting things started yet. We didn't even have the Juhu yet. I think they'd just gotten the land, which they had to fight for. But they got it at a much better price. I think it was like 60,000. What was the price of Juhu? Anybody know?
What?
The price of the Juhu property.
The property was, I sent Prabhupada $150,000 to purchase the land.
150,000. I think it would be worth more today, wouldn't it? 4 acres in Mumbai?
Many times.
Yeah, many times. So it's much better that they bought it now than think, oh, we should have bought it then, right? So, they said, don't build there, no one will come. That's much better that he built there instead of people saying, you should have bought that when it was affordable. $150,000 is how many rupees now? About $1.5 million? 10 million.
Many million.
150,000 would be
10,000, what is it? 100,000 rupees a square, something.
No, we're talking about the difference in money.
150 is a little bit more than a crore now.
Yeah, that was about 1 crore. It has to be worth more than a crore now.
It's worth 1,000 crores.
Yeah, especially when you got 4 acres together. You can't do a parcel because 4 separate acres would be less than 4 acres all together. So I went to Mayapur before Prabhupada got there, and they're driving me out. They said, Jayapataka Swami knows you're coming, and he's staying in that building there. I said, that shack? I said, yes. So I went inside, and he said, yes, I heard that you were coming. He said, you're most welcome to stay with us in the building. I tell people this, they say building. They said, you mean the lotus, the conch? I said, no. I asked Jayapataka Swami, where is the building? He says, this shack is the building. There isn't any other building. He didn't say one of the buildings. He said, the building. So then I walked up to the yoga pit, and one of Prabhupada's godbrothers says to me, he said, so how are Jayapataka Swami and Achuchananda Swami? And he chuckles, ha 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 ha. He said, see, I know your devotees, all of them. I said, we'll have more, you wait and see. Then he says to me, you know, your Swamiji should not have gone to the West without the permission of the Smat. And I'm thinking, really? Prabhupada always says we go in like a needle and come out like a plow. Like you say, we ask people, hey, just come and look at our temple. See what you think of it. You start easy, and I'm thinking, this is what he starts with? And I'm thinking, you know, I have to defend Prabhupada, but not offend his godbrother. So I'm going to get him to validate that Prabhupada had the permission to go to the West. So I'm only 18. I look up like an innocent child, and I said, really? He needs the permission of the Math. Who started this Math? He says, my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. I said, oh, so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and the Math are not different, they're the same? He says, yes, but why? He realized he's actually walked himself into a trap now, because he knows what I'm going to say, but it's too late. He says, but why? He's thinking maybe I'm just a child and I don't know. I said, because if Bhaktisiddhanta is non-different from the Math, and he asked my spiritual master to go, then he already has the permission. I said, thank you so much for helping me clear this up. Some people said I should have tried to rip his tongue out at the yoga pit. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to rip out one of Prabhupada's godbrothers' tongues in front of his disciples at the yoga pit and expect to get a positive reaction? Probably not possible. But when I said, thank you so much for helping me clear this up, he just went jai. He can't argue against his own point, can he? He's the one that said they're not different. So we have to think how to do that based on philosophy. We don't insult people, we present the facts. And we present it in a way that quite often we can get people to come up with their own facts. So then Prabhupada did something very brilliant. You know, you see how I say to people how he had the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta wrote in his will, handwritten will, can't be fake. Second line says, form a governing body commission and work cooperatively. Sounds pretty clear, doesn't it? You know when the Gaudiya Math did that? Not yet. But Prabhupada, on March 1st, 1971, he brought all of his godbrothers together. And after we all put dirt in, Prabhupada said, now that we're together, the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta, we'll stay together. Instead of working as many splinter movements, we'll work as one movement. We'll form a governing body commission. And from today forward, we'll work together. And they all said jai. And then Prabhupada didn't say something unless he was sure. So that means they're all going to work together, right? And then some came to Prabhupada and said, well, if you do this, then you'll become the most prominent. Prabhupada said, well, a governing body, everybody has equal voice. And last week they're saying I'm the junior member, and now I'm going to be more prominent. You can't be both, right? He's either the junior member or he's going to become more prominent. But you can't just say, oh, you're just a child, but everybody will listen to you and not anyone else. Both can't be true. He can't be more prominent and be the junior member. If they really thought he was the junior member, they would have jumped on because, hey, he's just the junior member. Everyone's going to follow us. And some says, well, we want to be the big fish in a small pond. But the whole point of Prabhupada didn't care. He went to America and chanted on a drum. He didn't even have a madunga, it was a bongo drum. He just did the needful in the park because the point was to spread Krishna consciousness. And not to worry, he'd bring the God brothers in to make them a part of his success, even though they didn't help much. Many temples he helped out. He helped out Allahabad. When I went with Prabhupada to the Gaudiya Math in Mumbai, one of his God brothers took me aside and he said, I'm going to tell you something that your spiritual master will probably never tell you. I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what this is. He said, as a householder, he almost single-handedly supported this temple. That doesn't mean he gave a donation or part of it. It means he bankrolled it, right? Like have something, building built by this individual, it means they didn't just give a donation, they did the whole thing, right? So Prabhupada never said, hey, I gave you money, you need to give me some. It's true, but he didn't say it. He did it on the value of the preaching. You'd think if he gave them 10 lakhs, they'd give him 1, right? Wouldn't you feel bad if someone gave you 10 lakhs for your preaching and you couldn't give anything for theirs? But nothing came. But still, he was willing to bring them all together. And so the next day I was leaving for South Africa and I went into Prabhupada's room and I said, Prabhupada, I'm going to Africa now. I hope this gives me an opportunity to increase my service to you. And Prabhupada put his hands behind his head and he said, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya. So I went there as a brahmachari assistant to Rishi Kumar Swami. You must know him. But we went together. Prabhupada talks about us being there. In the first Nectar of Devotion series tape, 33 minutes in, he mentions that Rishi Kumar, and my name in Sanskrit is Kshuti. In English, they say Shuti, and Prabhupada used the Bengali pronunciation, which is Kuti. He said that we were in South Africa preaching. Pretty soon after that, I wake up and there's a note from Rishi Kumar. Dear Shuti decided to split. And we'd just gotten like $15,000 worth of books to sell, and we'd collected $3,000, and Rishi Kumar took that with him. So I'm thinking, I have to come up with a plan. Now all of a sudden I'm here alone in this country as a child. At this time it was dangerous. The whites were 10%, they controlled everything. It was illegal for me to be mixed with Indians and blacks. And the blacks didn't like whites because the whites were oppressing them. So I was in trouble staying many kilometers from any people. Here the thieves try to get in your pocket, there they just stab you and shoot you. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to come up with a plan and tell Prabhupada my plan. There was no devotees to ask. I didn't even have neighbors. So I wrote to Prabhupada that even though I'm in debt, I'm going to order $3,000 worth more of Gitas and tell people they can't have the Gitas unless they buy the whole set. And I'll make incense sticks to help cover cost, put them in a few stores, sell them at programs I do. And I'd come up with so many decisions. When I wrote to Prabhupada, I thought, when the letter came back, I thought maybe I'm in trouble for so many decisions I'm making. So I opened the letter, and the first line says, I'm very much pleased at the responsibility you've taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age. I said, this means I've pleased the spiritual master, and it means I'm not in trouble because I had to take the responsibility. There was no one else to ask. And I didn't ask him, if Rishi Kumar shows up, can you try to collect money from him? But the next letter came with a receipt for $700. When he went to Mumbai, Prabhupada said, you left that young boy all alone with a $15,000 debt to the book fund? He said, you give me whatever money you have. So he got $700 from Prabhupada. And he gave it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada sent me a receipt for that. And in the letter, he also said that I'm just somehow or other like Narada Muni, who've been left all alone. He said, just like our Narada Muni, he became one of our greatest devotees. And he wrote, I am praying to Krishna, you'll have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. We have another half hour for, he has half an hour?
No,
They said we had,
Yadubara's here.
oh, they said we got to speak till 11:30.
You can start now.
I'm just going to tell it completely differently. So, when we reached the apartment in St. Moritz, Srila Prabhupada called me into his room and he said, tomorrow I'm going to teach you how to make kichoris. So, when I was recently in Ujjain, and in Ujjain is the ashram of Sandipani Muni, where Krishna was taught the 64 arts that are important in devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada was expert at everything. All of the 64 arts, there was nothing that was unknown to Srila Prabhupada. So, but he also had a very loving relationship with his disciples, and he would enjoy teaching them, just like Sandipani Muni enjoyed teaching Krishna. So in the morning, we had to figure out how to make kichoris, because where we were in Switzerland, not all the ingredients were present. But Srila Prabhupada was so intelligent that instead of using mung dal, which we didn't have for the filling, we used chickpeas. And he taught me how to knead the dough, how to add ghee to make it soft, and then how to enter the filling and and cook it. But this was just like a loving exchange between the spiritual master and the disciple. And Srila Prabhupada himself, on the day that he met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, he describes that meeting, that on that day I learned the meaning of love, because it was love at first sight. His Guru Maharaj loved him, and Srila Prabhupada loved his Guru Maharaj. And he openly expressed that thought. Usually when we think of Prabhupada, we think of awe and veneration. Just like with Krishna, we bow down to offer obeisances as his servant. But there are many other relationships, like the Madhurya Ras, the Sakya Ras, etc., different relationships. So we also have a very loving relationship with our Guru Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada was not afraid to talk about that. So I thought that was, even now he teaches us every day something new. We learn something new. Just like Shrutakirti was talking about Srila Prabhupada's detailed schedule that he kept wherever he went, no matter how many time zones he passed through, he still kept to the schedule, and he was very strict. So he had a very loving side, and he had a very strict side. He did not compromise the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So it's very complex, and as a devotee, one must learn the priorities and how to judge all these different things. I have some things that maybe I'll talk about later today, but right now we want to hear from Yadubara and his good wife, who have a lot of things to tell us. Yadubara Prabhu, can you come up? You're scheduled to speak now. What?
One more story, sir.
One more? Okay. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about the compassion of a Vaishnava. When I was with Srila Prabhupada, he came to Malaysia where I was preaching, and we had a whole bunch of programs, very successful. And then we took, I think Govardhan Prabhu, Prabhupada, and Radha and Krishna traveled with us to Sydney. Radha and Krishna in the form of marble deities that when we got to Sydney, Prabhupada was to install in Sydney Temple in Australia. So in his apartment, I was acting as his secretary and also serving him in whatever capacity that he desired. And in the middle of the night, as Shrutakirti mentioned, Srila Prabhupada always carried his bell wherever he went, and one could not be too far away from where he was taking rest, so that one could always hear the bell. And one thing that one should, when Srila Prabhupada would take a new servant, I thought it was quite amusing in the sense, he would always ask the person, does your nose work? And what he meant was, do you snore? But Srila Prabhupada just said it in a different way that was actually very amusing, because he didn't like to be disturbed while he was translating his books. So that was one thing that he would question someone who was aspiring to be his personal servant. But in any event, around 2 o'clock in the morning, I was sleeping, but I somehow heard Srila Prabhupada's bell ringing. So I walked into his room, and the room was very dark, but there was a little light at Srila Prabhupada's table, and he had his big red binding Srimad Bhagavatam open to the 7th canto. He wasn't translating, but he was reading about Prahlad Maharaj and the compassion of the Vaishnava. And this was very important to Srila Prabhupada. There were tears streaming from his eyes, and he motioned for me to sit down. And he started talking about the qualities of the Vaishnava, how he is so compassionate that he doesn't want to go back to home, back to Godhead alone, leaving the conditioned souls to suffer in this material world. And I see this Ecovillage project as a project of compassion, compassion for the conditioned souls. And Radhanath Maharaj is a compassionate soul. And I get that same sense that I get with Srila Prabhupada. He's so compassionate to the conditioned souls, to his God brothers, to everyone, because the Vaishnava is compassionate to everyone. And he frees us from our suffering in this material world. So Srila Prabhupada is holding the door open to us as he tries to encourage us to go back to home, back to Godhead. He used to have meetings before he started the temple at 26 2nd Avenue in New York, where I joined. Prabhupada used to have meetings in different places. And one such meeting he used to have was at 72nd Street in New York City. I think it was and we have to choose, asking us to enter into the spiritual world. Now that spiritual world is not so difficult to enter, because Srila Prabhupada created portals to the spiritual world all over this earth that we can freely take advantage. And when we engage in devotional service, we're actually in the spiritual world, because these are spiritual activities. And when we leave this body, those who are completely pure will be able to continue that devotional service in the spiritual world, in their spiritual form. So we should start now, because this is a replica of Vrindavan. We see the temple exactly as it is in Vrindavan, and the activities are exactly as in Vrindavan, the devotional activities of Vaishnavas. So we simply have to enter into it and purify ourselves and make ourselves suitable for entering into the spiritual world under the guidance of the pure devotee and the spiritual master. So the pure devotee and the spiritual master are the tracks on which the train of devotional service has a stable foundation and can move forward into our devotional life. So I think we got it, Prabhu and Vishaka. Prabhus, you ready? So our time is up, so we can continue later. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
So whenever I used to read Prabhupada Lilamrit, I used to wonder, who is Balimardhan Prabhu? For the first time in my life, I got his darshan. Who is one of the first person who was nominated in 12 GBC. Prabhupada made him BBT book trustee, and he was like the commander-in-chief when Prabhupada was preaching, Balimardhan Prabhu. So let's thank all these three devotees, Balimardhan Prabhu, Suddhi Prabhu, and Avinandan Prabhu, by loudly chanting 3 times, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Now, as it is a festival of gratitude, so somehow or other by Krishna's mercy, all Prabhupada disciples, one after one, they are coming. Now we have with us His Grace Shrutakirti Prabhu, His Grace Yaduvar Prabhu and Vishaka Mataji. So, both of them, if you see, whatever memories we have, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami's Maharaj, Prabhupada's photo, video, everything, all these things are in one way, it is documented by Shrutakirti, Yaduvar Prabhu and Vishaka Mataji. So recently Prabhuji has brought such a nice movie, the Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, the Swami. How many of you have watched Hare Krishna movie? How did you like? So he is the man behind that, and Mataji both. So we are very, very grateful for both of them to have us in this Govardhan Ecovillage today. So I request, please, Mataji and Prabhuji to share about Prabhupada's memories and pastime. Mataji also president of ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Manor. So there Mataji stays and he takes care of the temple there. So let's welcome both by chanting loudly 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
ये टूट गया है प्रभु, ये स्टैंड टूट गया है, हाथ में पकड़ना पड़ेगा, रिक्वेस्ट।
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesa Sunyavari Pasketare Sudarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much for coming to this most auspicious day, to Radhanath Swami's Vyasa Puja. We've been fortunate enough to be associated with Maharaj for many, many years. We were both married in Vrindavan in November 1971. And Maharaj at that time happened to come back down from the Himalayas to Mathura. And as we know, he got off the train and he couldn't get back on the train because it was so crowded. And he was in Mathura on Janmashtami. So these are all higher arrangements by our Lord to place Maharaj in different circumstances for him to become what he is today, a empowered Vaishnava. So he actually came back down. He wanted to meet Prabhupada because he had met Prabhupada at the Cross Maidan Festival. You know the story when Prabhupada called him out of the big crowd, 20,000 people. And Prabhupada knew that there was he knew his future. He knew he was a Vaishnava, becoming a Vaishnava. And he called him out of the audience of 20,000 people. and had him sit up on stage next to Prabhupada, next to him. And then Prabhupada asked him, please come to my lectures every night. So after that, Maharaj went back into the Himalayas, and he came down again, landed in Mathura, and he was wanting to meet Prabhupada every day. He would walk around Vrindavan trying to find Prabhupada. So at the time we were getting married in, what was the name of that ashram? In Saraf Bhavan. I don't think it exists anymore. But that was in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was presiding at the ceremony. And guess who walks in the door? His Holiness Radhanath Swami. So he came to our marriage. We only have one photograph of our marriage compared to our daughters who have hundreds of photographs and videos. But Malati, because we were the only photographers, we were in the ceremony getting married. And so Malati Devi ran up to Vishaka and said, "Where's your camera?" So she took the one photograph we have. So after that, we met Maharaj many, many times. He was actually at the birth in Puri of our second daughter, Haripriya Devi. And also he gave a wonderful lecture at our older daughter's marriage ceremony in Washington, D.C. There were 6 other sannyasis present at that wedding ceremony. You may have seen on YouTube, it's quite a famous video now, How the Swamis Dance. How many have seen that? How the Swamis have danced. So anyway, Radhanath Swami at one point was picked up by Indraduma Swami from the back and started spinning around. And the Maharaj's feet, he was going so fast, his feet were like this. So everyone was trying to grab his feet and touch their heads. Can you understand what I'm saying? Can you understand? Bali, can you understand? I don't think so. Can everyone understand? Yes, no. Huh? Volume is low. Is the audio engineer here? Everyone's saying they can't hear.
Increase the volume.
Hare Krishna, is that better? Let me see a few words.
Oh, you go ahead, finish the story.
Good story.
It's a wedding.
I already did.
They couldn't hear you.
So I first met Prabhupada in Surat, Gujarat. Still. I had come as a photographer to travel with Prabhupada's party, to take pictures for a master's thesis. When I first met Prabhupada, I asked him if I could stay with the party and travel with him for the next few months. And he asked me, I had come not as a devotee, I had mustache, long hair, wearing jeans. So Prabhupada asked me, are you going to become a devotee? And I said, I don't think so, Prabhupada, because I had no inclination to shave my head and wear robes. So Prabhupada said, then you cannot stay. So what to do? I was 10,000 miles away from everything. I knew no one in Surat and didn't have a place to stay. So the devotees kindly gave me a place to stay that night. So I got up the next morning and the devotees didn't say anything, and Prabhupada didn't say anything, and I stayed for 2 months. So we could understand that Prabhupada knows our heart and mind. Because I had some attraction for Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada understood that and gave me time to gradually come closer to him and the Hare Krishna movement. So Vishaka Devi, I'd like to say a few words at this point. When she first came, when we both first came,
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvase Sasunyavadi Paskyata Deshatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakopa tarubhyascha, kripa sindhu vyaevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavebhyo, namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Can anyone hear me? Oh, good. A little bit. What to do? A lot of ambient noise. Can't be helped. Some people can't hear anything. Anyway, in my case, there's no loss. What are mics for? Hare Krishna. I'm very grateful to be here today. This is an amazing, amazing offering for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, the Govardhan Ecovillage. What has manifested here under the guidance of Radhanath Swami and his amazing team is truly unparalleled. Truly, we read in Srila Prabhupada's books, especially Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, about the glorious Vedic culture that we're all trying to imbibe in our lives. And much of it can feel idealistic and utopian, how the leaders had such integrity, had such a sense of forgiveness. We're so God-conscious. We're so free from the desire to exploit. We're so free from the desire for personal gain and profit. We're so free from lust. And at the same time, we're detached. They had such opulence. They had such power, such influence, and yet when the time came, they could walk away from it. And so we see the power of a leader manifest here at Govardhan Ecovillage. Radhanath Prabhu was saying how we can all feel Prabhupada's words, take advantage of this great opportunity. So each one of us has a great opportunity coming here to taste genuine Krishna consciousness and to really take it deep within us and take it back to wherever we serve. We're so fortunate. So this little time period is for Prabhupada Leela. So we were fortunate, my husband and I, to have some association with Srila Prabhupada by his mercy. I was raised in an atheistic family. My mother and father were raised very religiously. My mother in the Roman Catholic Church in Great Britain, and my father was raised in the Jewish tradition. And when they came of age, they both felt that religion was simply ritual with no substance, nothing beyond the ritual. And so they raised me and my brother as atheists. My whole life growing up, we never went to any temple or synagogue or church or mosque. And in fact, I was rather avid as an atheist. So when I came to India at the invitation of my husband, Yadavara Prabhu, I came as a photographer, not as a seeker. Although at the same time, during my growing up period, I had seen how empty it is to have fame, to have wealth, to have great knowledge. in different ways, that became very clear to me. And so I was quite confused about my own life and what my own goals were and what success was. I was bewildered, but I didn't look to the spiritual side. However, I had the fortune of meeting Srila Prabhupada, and in our first meeting, or one of the first meetings, we had the idea that we'd take a photographic essay of a quaint Indian village where they didn't use machinery, but they used ox power and the talents, the skills of their own hands. And we thought this would be fascinating for Westerners to see a quaint Indian village with no machinery. So we had this idea of doing a photo essay, but we didn't know which village to go to. There are thousands and thousands of villages in India, and we were very new to India. So we had the idea, Srila Prabhupada's from India, he's traveled throughout India, we'll ask him where to do our photographic essay. So we went to him and explained our vision, and he looked at us with a mixture of amusement and gravity. And he said, "You do not speak the language. Wherever you go, they will simply cheat you and steal your cameras." Prabhupada was very pragmatic, along with all his other qualities. He was very pragmatic. And we knew he was being straightforward with us. We had already been pickpocketed on an Indian train. So we were quite deflated. Our bubble of an idea had been popped by Prabhupada's pin of pragmatism. And then he paused and he said, "Better you go to Vrindavan and you do your story in Vrindavan." So after that, he traveled, and we didn't go directly to Vrindavan. It was very hot at that time of year. First, we went to Nepal and did some trekking. And then we went back and found our way to Vrindavan, and we stayed there for 1 month on Prabhupada's instruction. And I like to say that I entered Vrindavan as an atheist, and I left as a theist, because Vrindavan was just imbued with faith. So it was an extraordinary experience based on Prabhupada's genius of an instruction. Hare Krishna.
So this is Prabhupada's magic to transform atheists into theists. So Vishaka went from atheist to president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Haribol. Yeah. And so Prabhupada did that with so many of us. And His Holiness Radhanath Swami and other exalted God brothers and Vaishnavas are continuing to do that with people from all over the world, capturing them in the net of devotional service. So yeah, we've been so fortunate over the years to be associated with Maharaj, and I'll tell you one story. Actually, Maharaj wasn't there at the time. This is my favorite story because it's the one time that Prabhupada chastised me. And I think we can learn more from chastisement than from praise. Right? So we were on a morning walk in Denver, Colorado, and the subject at that time amongst devotees was how to increase our health through diets. Right? How to increase our health through dieting, eating certain foods, making you more healthy. So it was kind of a fad going around. Devotees were going on certain fasts and diets. I did it myself, but it was a complete failure. It didn't work out. So on the walk, Tamal Krishna Goswami was encouraging everyone to forget the diets and just die eating prasad. Haribol. To die eating prasadam. Follow? So anyway, the walk continued, and I thought I would contribute to the conversation. So I said, Prabhupada, these diets are useless. The diet is useless. So Prabhupada stopped walking, he planted his cane, he turned to me and he said, the diet is useless, or you are useless. And I was completely stunned, could not respond. So that was a very profound statement, because I'm blaming the diet and not myself for accepting, adopting, and following the diet. I was claiming no responsibility and blaming the diet. So this is so true of every conditioned soul. We tend to blame circumstances or others about our misfortune. You follow? Make sense? Yeah. So this is a very important lesson I think all of us need to really understand and learn. The tendency in the West is for falling into unfortunate condition is to call a lawyer or sue the person, take them to court. But this is not the Vaishnava way. We accept whatever comes to us and we forgive. Yes. Hare Krishna.
What time is it?
Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada stayed a long time in Juhu because there was so much difficulty in acquiring the property there. The devotees were being cheated. And being from the West, they didn't know how at all to deal with it, and being very young as well. And every morning, religiously, Srila Prabhupada would take an hour-long walk along Juhu Beach, which was very beautiful. And he would take it between 6 and 7. So I was a photographer, and I would go religiously with him every morning because it was a beautiful scene. The light was very gentle at that time of day. Prabhupada often would be very animated. There was one Dr. Patel who came along with a few of his friends, all of whom knew all the verses from Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. And sometimes they would have very animated discussions. This Dr. Patel was a very talkative personality. And in the course of these discussions, it became apparent that although Dr. Patel felt that he was a Vaishnava, in fact, he was a Mayavadi. And he did not understand that. He didn't understand the distinction between Vaishnava and Mayavad. And so when his Mayavad understanding came out during the discussions, Prabhupada would get very upset and speak very strongly, making his point about how simultaneously one yet different. Krishna's energies are simultaneously one yet different from Krishna. It's called Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, a very basic principle of the Vaishnava philosophy. And sometimes they would be so angry that the devotees would get upset because they saw Prabhupada so worked up preaching the Vaishnava philosophy. Satsvarup Maharaj was there with his danda. At one point I noticed he was gripping his danda so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He was so angry with Dr. Patel. So Prabhupada did something very unusual at that time. He had a devotee bring Krishna book. And as we walked along the long, beautiful beach of Juhu, they would read the pastimes of Krishna from Krishna book. And when Dr. Patel saw this, he would stop coming because he liked this conversation. And without the conversation, he and his friends would walk separately. But years later, in Back to Godhead magazine, after Prabhupada's passing, Dr. Patel wrote an article. And the title of the article was My Life's Most Precious Moments. And it was all about his morning walks. Over many years, he would walk every time Prabhupada came. He would join the walks, and how it transformed him. And eventually he understood the beauty and the validity and the completeness of the Vaishnava philosophy. So it was very wonderful to see his slow transformation and the effort Srila Prabhupada made to transform him. So one morning I was waiting for Srila Prabhupada to go on his morning walk. It was dark, it was 6 o'clock. I had my camera and I was sitting cross-legged, chanting japa as I waited for him. And he came very, very quietly right by me, just inches away from me. And he glanced at me and he said, "Thank you very much." And I thought, I'm just sitting here. Why is he thanking me? And then I thought, no, he saw that I'm chanting japa, and that was his instruction to all his followers. And so he was expressing his gratitude for me to make that effort. And I think he expresses and is aware of all of us who chant japa, and he's also grateful for that. So it was a source of great encouragement for me, and I think it should be a source of great encouragement for every follower of Srila Prabhupada. But just make the effort sincerely, and Prabhupada is grateful. Krishna will be aware that we're making the effort and respond accordingly. Hare Krishna.
I'd rather hear Vishaka Devi talk. So when I first met Prabhupada in Surat, we were staying in the home of Mr. Jariwala. He was a banker in Surat. He had a very big house. And I think it was four or 5 story house. So he housed all the devotees, Prabhupada and myself, for 10 days. And we were, brand new, most of us. Probably the oldest devotee had been in the movement maybe two years. So we really didn't know the proper Indian culture. We were constantly making mistakes and not following properly the culture. But Prabhupada always stood up for us. He was very indebted to all of us for coming to India at such a young age and helping him start the movement. So Mr. Jariwala, when it came time for us to leave, he came out and paid obeisances to all of us. He said, "Please forgive any offenses I committed." He didn't commit any offense. We committed offenses against him and so many things we did wrong. So at that time, when he said, "Please forgive me for any offenses," he started to cry. He was weeping. And Prabhupada looked at us, he said, "This is a Vaishnava." Just totally humble, totally dedicated to serving the devotees. Extraordinary man. So from there we went to Kumbh Mela, Allahabad. At that was 1971, the Kumbh Mela. And Prabhupada stayed with us in a tent. It was extremely cold at that time. So Prabhupada did quite a bit of service in Allahabad as a grihasta. He was serving his godbrothers, his spiritual master. He was working as a pharmacist. So Prabhupada stayed with us in a tent on the cold plateau of the Ganges. He could have stayed in a hotel. The devotees offered him a nice place to stay, but he refused. He always wanted to stay with his disciples. I'll just talk, well, let's see. We served in Juhu for about 2 years. We got a letter from Karanda Prabhu, the head of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. We had been sending him photos and movies that we made while in India. He liked them very much. So at that time, there was no movies up on ISKCON. There was just only some home movies, some home movies of the kirtan, of the devotees, but nothing made into a film, a proper film. So Karanda Prabhu had the idea, let's bring Vishaka and Yarubara back to America to make the first film on ISKCON. So he gave that idea to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada liked it very much. In fact, Prabhupada financed that first film $16,000. At that time, that was a lot of money. In today's value, it's over $100,000. So that was from Prabhupada's book fund, meant to print books and to establish temples. So Prabhupada was actually the associate producer for the first Hare Krishna movie. The movie is called Hare Krishna People. How many have seen Hare Krishna People? Not so many. That movie was shown all over the world. It was very instrumental in making many life members. Prabhupada liked the film very much. He asked us to make Krishna conscious films the most popular films. To sell this film widely and from the prophets make more films. So we tried to do that. Prabhupada saw 4 of our films and encouraged us to make more films. The latest film is the Hare Krishna movie, as Prabhu mentioned. The movie is now on YouTube, free, in all 8 major Indian languages: Hindi, Bengali, Kannada, Gujarati, Tamil, what else? All 8 Indian languages. So anyone, those who don't speak English can now watch the movie. It's also in Russian. But if you go to our website, our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Hare Krishna Film Classics. Hare Krishna Film Classics. And we have a flyer with a QR code. So please, if you get, I think they'll be having some signs with a QR code at the program this afternoon. We made also short versions, 29 minutes and 47 minutes. The original film is 90 minutes. So those short versions were made specifically to be shown in schools and colleges. Anyone who sees Prabhupada, his auspicious life, his or her auspicious life has begun. That's a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Just by seeing a Vaishnava, one's auspicious life has begun. So especially we want the youth of India to see the movie, to see Prabhupada's walking, talking. It's an incredible story, starting with nothing and developing this huge movement. There's nothing equal in history. Nobody came to America with nothing. They all had sponsors and so forth. They had some backers, but Prabhupada came with nothing, no money, and he knew he only had one contact he'd never met. This is Prabhupada's sacrifice and compassion to spread Krishna consciousness to as many as possible. So please make Prabhupada available to your local schools. Please approach the principal, say we have a movie, 29 minutes or 47 minutes, that you can show in your schools to the youth. So I think we have another 10 minutes before Aarti. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So there's one little pastime of Srila Prabhupada, which I think, although it's a small pastime, to me it had great significance. Also, it happened in Juhu, not far from here. And at that time, Prabhupada was living in one of the tenant buildings in the back of the property. And Malati Devi Dasi was his servant. She would cook, and she would also assure that his rooms were clean, and she would also assure that his laundry was done. At that time, we were so short-handed, we had to send the laundry to Adobe nearby. So Prabhupada, one morning, he asked her, "Where is the kurta that I was wearing yesterday?" And Malati said, "Oh, it's with Adobe, Srila Prabhupada. Do you need it?" And Prabhupada said, "Yes." So Malati ran across the entire property to this little Adobe, grabbed the kurta from him, ran back and gave it to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada reached in the pocket of the kurta and pulled out a 1 rupee note. He had forgotten he had left it there. And he said to her, "For Krishna, I can spend lakhs of rupees, but for myself, I don't want to waste a single rupee." To me, it was so profound, because especially from the West, we tend to be very wasteful. Some people go around on the street corners in the West and they pick up furniture, they pick up machinery, they pick up children's toys, and they have everything they need just from what other people consider as useless. But Prabhupada is so conscientious that it is all coming from Krishna. It is not to be wasted, it is to be used in Krishna's service. So I think especially from the West, and perhaps now in India, India is becoming westernized so much, we have to reorient our minds so that we don't waste. In Mayapur, if Srila Prabhupada walked past a locked room with no one inside and the fans were running, he would comment on it. "Why are the fans running? No one is inside. You're wasting Krishna's electricity. You're wasting Krishna's lights," and so on. So it's part of being conscious. Krishna consciousness means to become conscious that everything is coming from Krishna, including all the energy that we take for granted. Even our physical energy should be used in Krishna's service and not be wasted in the service of Maya. Hare Krishna.
So there's one very memorable pastime. We're at Kartikeya Mahadevi's house. Prabhupada was staying in his house. And every night Prabhupada would lecture. And Kartikeya Mahadevi would invite his friends to come over. Maybe a dozen or 20 people, something like that. All Indians, of course. At that time, there may be, I don't know, five or six Indian disciples at that time. So these guests, Prabhupada would speak to them every night, and every night he would encourage them to become Krishna conscious and spread it all over the world. Prabhupada would practically sometimes be yelling at them, "Become devotees and go out and spread it all over the world." I was thinking these Prabhupada's yelling at these at Kartikeya Mahadevi's guests. Not yelling, but he was extremely forceful. And today we can see Prabhupada was the huge earthquake that started the tsunami of Indians all over the world spreading Krishna consciousness to every country. So it's an amazing thing to see how the Indians are just taking up the message so wonderfully, because it's your culture. For us, it's a lot more difficult. Our only qualification is we've stayed a long time. So please don't get discouraged if there's any difficulty in your devotional service. Just hang in there. And if you hang in there long enough, you'll be successful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So at this time at Kartikeya Mahadevi's house, when Prabhupada would speak so forcefully to the Indian people and make so many statements, strong statements, encouraging them to take up this culture and to imbibe it in their own lives and to give it to others. At that time, he said, India has become so fallen that they have to import milk powder and brahmanas. In other words, so-called brahmanas in India were not acting as brahmanas. They were acting in an exploitative way. Prabhupada went to the West and encouraged people to be selfless, to serve God sincerely. Some of them became brahmanas, and Prabhupada brought them to India. And so India was importing brahmanas as well as milk powder. The earth which should be bathed in the milk coming from the cows, now they're importing from overseas milk powder. So it's so encouraging to see that now so many Indian people are taking up Krishna consciousness seriously and giving it to everyone in the world. We're very, very grateful to all of you for doing that. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Just one last story. At Kartikeya Mahadevi's, Prabhupada would take his massage and his bath. Then you come out into the main living room and dining area to take lunch. So Prabhupada, one day we were all lined up, kind of down the living room. And Prabhupada opened the door and stepped out. And he was completely shining and golden. And as he walked past all of us, he turned and looked at us. He said, "Back home, back to Godhead." And it was so wonderful. We smelled the beautiful fragrance of Prabhupada's sandalwood oil. He just floated past us. And this is Prabhupada's invitation, back home, back to Godhead. And this is for all of us. Again, if we stick to the process, sometimes the senses overcome us. We understand that. But let us not fall into the trap of unnecessarily criticizing others. That's a very detrimental to our devotional service. Criticism and blasphemy of the mad elephant offense of blasphemy of Vaishnava. We have to be very careful with that. So work on purifying our hearts and minds, work on ourselves. That's the main thing we need to do, and not be disturbed by others, whatever they may do. So I think it's time for Arti. Thank you so much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Hare Krishna. So today is Festival of Gratitude on the 75th birthday of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. We all are gathered here to express our gratitude to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And what could be more fortune to have all his disciples together here in this temple hall. All are sharing such a wonderful pastimes with Prabhupada. It is like taking association of Prabhupada directly. So we are grateful to all the disciples of Prabhupada to grace this occasion, coming to Govardhan Ecovillage and allowing us to have a glimpse on Prabhupada's Leela. Really we are grateful. Let's express our gratitude by loudly chanting 3 times, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. So now Rajbhoga Aarti will begin. So Aarti Kirtan will be continue in this temple hall, 12 to 1. And then from 1 to 2, there will be bhajan here in this temple hall. And 2 to 3:30, there will be again some katha will happen in this temple hall. And from 3:30, Festival of Gratitude will begin in the pandal. So, and the prasadam will be throughout the day in the Lalita Bhavan side. All can take prasadam anytime, whole day it's continue. Hare Krishna. So now we all can take part in Kirtan, Rajbhoga. Hare Krishna. Thank you.